And are things working? Yes, things appear to be working. That's good. Hi. We changed up. I changed up some of the audio settings before since last time, and I think they're looking all right. Then you let me know. They need a little extra tweaking, but it seems like everything's in line. Unfortunately, when I was changing things, I lost some of the settings that I had for the mic, so we'll see how it goes. I think we need to limit the top end a little bit, compress it a bit, but otherwise I think we're okay. And I'm not going to fiddle with the compressor. Hopefully, I don't plan on shouting, so we shouldn't have an issue there. But don't upset me. Not that you ever would, you perfect child. All right, there we go. So yeah, today we're talking about a few different things, but the first thing we're going to talk about is some player type kind of stuff and orienting a game towards the playstyles of everybody sort of in the group. So that's what the primary thing we're going to take a look at. So let me pull up the stuff. How's your week going? Mine went okay. Work was very busy. That part was pretty stressful, actually. I'm not gonna lie, but we got through it. Got through another week. Hopefully one more week, and then maybe things will get better. We'll see. Been busy at work. There's giant stuff happening, and somebody leaving, and short-staffed, and very stressful. Putting in the extra hours and all that good stuff. Unfortunately. All right, we're gonna bring up. What's the thing we were looking at? I know we were looking at it. Wait. There it is. Got it. Ladies and gentlemen, we got. All right. Let me move this up. Other things are going on. So, no D&D yesterday, no D&D tomorrow, and I think it might be the same for next week. That's still up in the air. We have part of our party. I talked about in my Friday game, the game that I'm running. We exited a PC sort of out of that game. One of our players had a scheduling conflict that we don't know when that's going to be resolved, so we kind of exited their PC from the campaign. So if you need to do that or want to do that, you should go watch the last stream after you're done with this stream. But in doing so, now we're down to 3 PCs in the party. So when there is a PC that is missing because the player has a bit of a family situation, so they need to take a couple of weeks off. So I suspect there's some travel involved. Which usually means that things are not great, unfortunately, but wishing them the best. So we're basically taking 2 weeks off because it's a little bit more difficult. It's not impossible, but it's significantly more difficult to play D&D with just 2 players than it is 3, because then you're missing. 4 is that nice rounded party. 3 is actually my favorite number to run for as a DM. I feel like that 3 is just the amount of screen time or share time that feels right with the trio, and trio means that there's always something that they're probably not very good at in the party, which makes it easy as a DM to sort of like pick at that whenever you need to give them a little bit of a gut punch. That's a very easy way to do that. But playing for 2 is significantly more difficult. That's when the stuff like encounter math starts to get weird. Very easily for them to get overwhelmed. They only have a significantly more limited set of things that they can do unless you're building characters that were meant to always be in a duo. And the other part of it is that we do have this big festival that's kind of coming up in the game, and I did want this to be something that everybody is there for. So it is a situation where somebody had to step away, and we're like, okay, well, we're going to have to put the game on pause. It was either that, or I was going to have to pull up some sort of one-shot, or I guess we could have done something other than D&D, but I think that the other 2 players will be happy for the moment to have a break, so they may have their Friday evenings back to be the social butterflies that they are and go do some other things, go out on a Friday night, rather than just be stuck playing musty old D&D with me and the rest of our friends. So it is an opportunity for them, and I'm sure that they're going to be appreciative about it. And then hopefully they'll be coming back. Everybody will be coming back, ready to play in the next session. So yeah, that's sort of the situation I was in. Sunday, DM's on call. Next week, potentially have a family thing. I think they're still trying to sort it out. So that might be, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play in that next Sunday as well. So we'll see. So a little bit of a D&D drought for the moment as far as like the actual game aspect. So that makes this doing these much nicer. It's been a little. I wish I would have had a little bit more time this week to put in effort, but like I said, work was pretty tough this week. So we're just gonna do our best. So I did spend a little bit of time working on a few things, and we'll kind of go on from there. And I'm trying to figure out whether I want to share this document or not. So I'm just gonna have a document that I've been putting together. I guess we can go over it. We've already gone over one part of this. We did this a stream a few weeks ago. We talked about sort of the roles and responsibilities of DM and what it means to be a dungeon master or game master. And so kind of continuing on that theme, because I realized that I typically do a lot of advice that's kind of for intermediate, kind of middling dungeon master, game masters, but not necessarily a ton for sort of newer game masters or dungeon masters. So I wanted to make sure that we hit that for that audience as well, for people who are still interested in getting into the game and want to have been playing for a while and want to kind of swap over and take a seat behind the screen and, maybe run a one-shot, maybe run an adventure, maybe run a campaign, who knows. And maybe some of this will help you do that. So like I said, last time we talked about your roles and responsibilities as Dungeon Master, Game Master, referee or judge, narrator or storyteller, facilitator or host. Those are kind of three big roles. Kind of talked about sort of the logistical and societal or social roles that kind of you're in charge of, or that are often considered the Dungeon Master or Game Master is in charge of. Touched a little bit on burnout and knowing about finding sort of how much gas you have in the tank as a Dungeon Master or Game Master, and when you need to take breaks and how to recharge sort of that creativity. We did a little bit of that, talked about that. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about some player styles and group goals. And I think I can just show this document. I don't think this document's going to, yeah, actually that might be good because there's actually quite a bit in here. And I didn't get through some of the stuff is still very much in rough outline draft. So I didn't completely finish it off, but I think we got most of it that I haven't finished going through. So let's go ahead and jump in and do that. So I will share the document so that way we can get started and we'll take a look at it. And of course, if you guys have any questions along the way, drop them in the chat, or if you have questions about other stuff, you can also drop that in the chat and I will try to address them and as we go through. All right, let's go. I have not set this up yet. All right, Windows capture. Here we go. Oh, that's not around anymore. What we looked at last time. Here we go. All right. I can make this just a little bit bigger. Let's just set it at 125. Is 150 too big? 150 is pretty big, but maybe not too big. Yeah, you can see everything there. All right. So, playstyles and group goals. That's sort of what we're talking about. Actually, you know what? This may be easier if you don't see the document, because I'm going to kind of read off the document. So, and probably add my own stuff to it. So, maybe once we get to the questions, we'll jump back in. Actually, you don't really need to see that aspect. I think about it for more than half a second. Okay, playstyles and group goals. Despite what the internet vomit says, there is no true way to play D&D or any other TTRPG. There is no one right way. And now, obviously, the rules have very specific bend to them. So once you start getting away from that, it doesn't mean that necessarily you're playing it wrong. It is a game that's intentionally built to kind of hot swap out rules and kind of come at it with a few different angles. So it's got quite a bit of flexibility in the rule system as to how you want to interpret it and how you want to focus that information. So it's definitely got that. So in addition, with that flexibility, every group kind of plays differently. It's kind of the biggest strength and weakness of the hobby is that every table is different. It's a strength because if you look long enough, you're going to be able to find a group that fits your particular style of play. That means that you're going to find different types. Ideally, you're going to find different types of players and that operate kind of like spices, and then they blend together really well in complementary styles. And that tends to work out better than having, say, an entire group that's like nothing but actors or nothing but power gamers. Then you're very, very sort of like narrowed in, and it'll be fun for a while. But to me at least, that's been my personal experience. That does tend to get a bit stale after a while because it really only hits that one specific area thing that you like in D&D or whatever TTRPG you're playing, at the expense of not doing any of the other stuff. And usually, I have more interest than just that. But there are some really, really strong things like people who play like Beer and Pretzel kind of dungeon crawl games who are perfectly happy just kicking indoors and killing orcs. And that's all they want out of the game, and they don't want to think about it too much or have a lot of character drama or even do that much exploration. Or optimize their characters that much. Like, that is the game they want to play. It's just them, it's often a little bit closer to maybe something like playing a board game or having a weekly poker night or something like that. So there are those sort of outliers, but I do think they are the outliers rather than the rule. I think most people want kind of a more well-rounded thing. It's kind of like if you've ever seen the Japanese way that they do like stats for whatever characters, and they do those like hexagon metrics with different points graphs. I am not describing what I am trying to say very well. That's okay. I'm sure somebody out there got that reference. If not, we're just gonna move past it. It's fine. I don't think there are gonna be plenty of people who are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Just gonna move on. It's not important. So that is the strength. Is that if you put in some work to actually look and go through groups and play with a bunch of different people, you are going to start to find a natural group of people that you play really well with, whose styles seem very aligned or complementary to the way you want to play. Now, the weakness of that, with every table kind of being different, number one is that whenever you show up at the table, you don't really know what the game's going to be if you don't know the people beforehand. This is one of the things that makes playing with things like strangers online so difficult, because you never really know how people are going to act and what they're going to be interested in. It's very rare that you're going to know that beforehand. And sometimes it's good, and oftentimes it's not good. And you got to sift through a lot of detritus to kind of find those people you're going to mesh well with sometimes. Beyond that, there's different D&D editions and TTRPGs rule systems that better accommodate, each one kind of better accommodates specific styles of play or specific type of game. And if the current sort of hot game, D&D 2024, Pathfinder 2, Call of Cthulhu, you don't have like one of those current hot rule systems, doesn't work with your style, it's gonna take a lot more work to find the right people in game. So often I think if you're in that sort of situation where you're like, oh, I really want to play, I really think that this one specific style of game, let's say you're playing, I don't know, like Blue Rose or something like that, so you want a whole lot of social RP, flowery kind of stuff that's got a little bit of mechanics behind it, you want to play something like that, like, I think that it's actually better to spend time playing other games, find the people first who are going to want to play in that game, and then pitch playing the game. So sometimes I think it's better first if you find that group and then pitch the game, rather than, I think that a lot of the ways that people go about it is like, I wouldn't run this game, and then get discouraged when not a lot of people sign up for it, or kind of aren't interested in playing it. It's like, sometimes you need to find the right people first and then pitch them the game, rather than vice versa. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's not going to take a lot of time, but it is possible. Especially online these days. Like finding people to play with online is significantly easier. It's significantly easier than it's ever been to find people to play with. Now, like I said, playing with strangers online is, well, it's a crapshoot. It's always a crapshoot. Let me give you some examples, some system examples of kind of what I'm talking about. I said Blue Rose already, but talk about sort of like 5e 2024, obviously very popular, kind of top dog still. It's not a very crunchy game, so for those, I don't know everybody's familiarity, so we'll just talk about crunchy. Crunchy just means that there's a pretty deep mechanics. There's a lot of mechanics to chew on, and there's a lot of ways to kind of mess with the game. And so there's not a ton of that in 5e 2024. Now, if you've only played D&D 5e 2024, you're not going to have any. You only have one reference point, so it is both the crunchiest and least crunchy game that you've ever played. But if you compare that to something like 3rd edition D&D, 3rd edition D&D much crunchier. A lot more rules, a lot more subsystems, a lot more things to kind of sink your teeth into. So 5e 2024 doesn't really give a lot of that crunch, but at the same time, it also doesn't have a lot of rules for stuff outside of combat. So it's mostly a combat-focused game. That's nothing new. D&D's been doing that for a while now. So 5e 2024 doesn't offer as much for things like power gamers or explorer styles of players. We're going to get into the play styles in just a second, but those are styles of play. So it doesn't offer as much from that. Now, if you wanted to turn around, you could look at, if you wanted to engage those people, if you're looking for the power gamer people, it's really when you want to focus on something that's like a 3X edition D&D, so 3rd edition 3.5, Pathfinders 1 and 2. Those are much crunchier. There's a lot more kind of Munchkin land. There's a lot more different feats and things you pick up, and a lot of different build options and supplementary material, splat books, all those sorts of things that help kind of become Munchkin land, where you're trying to make the most optimized character, the most powerful character. Sometimes to make the silliest one-trick pony that's only good at doing the one thing, and they only try to do the one thing. Those sorts of things, which is a power gamer's delight. And then you look at the other stuff if you want to reach out for people who are more like explorers. You want to look at maybe something that's a little bit more like the OSR, the old school Renaissance rule set that's got to focus on sort of 1st edition D&D 0, 1st edition D&Ds, somewhat 2nd edition basic, kind of all mixed in together. And those often, because the early editions of D&D focus a lot more on exploration style play, so a lot of dungeon crawling and wilderness hex crawling and stuff like that, where explorer stuff really comes up, where you're doing things like tracking resources and time outside and day parts, and you have dungeon turns where usually like 15 minutes, and you decide what you're doing within that 15 minutes, so you know how much time is passing in the dungeon, which is not stuff that comes pre-baked in sort of 5e 2024, where they're like, yeah, we don't actually talk about that at all. So totally different styles of play, totally different styles of D&D to play to make that. But it's important that the system that you choose is kind of only the first step in putting together the right game. So each DM kind of cultivates an individual thumbprint as to their own personal style. Like, I've got my own personal style. If you're running D&D, you've got your own personal style. And it will change and solidify more the more you do it. And you do have to come to a point where you do recognize that, hey, my style of running games is not for everybody. There are specific play styles that I'm, just like with the rule systems, there's specific play styles that I'm going to lean a lot further into and much more easily, and ones that I'm going to avoid a little bit more, that I'm not going to do as much. So that's primarily the big reason why no two D&D games are the same. You've got an entirely different set of players, entirely different DM, and each brings their own individual play styles to the table and kind of makes their own game special. So yeah, they're never going to be the same. Now, I do want to talk about one piece of advice that I've seen a lot for especially new DMs or people coming up with games that I don't necessarily agree with. And there is this underlying idea that there's this advice that you need to sort of like curate or calibrate your game to your group. And my answer to that is, yeah, that's true. But also very much, no, that's not true at all. I think it's a little bit more opaque than that. Primarily, one of the things is that I don't like advice that kind of puts the dungeon master or game master fully in subservient territory of the group. Like they are a servant of the game kind of style. This sort of servile approach to running the game. I think that's where we get in a lot of trouble, where you talk about like, we see the DM horror stories that are running for terrible groups who are, just kind of running roughshod over them or socially pressure them into a bunch of stuff. I don't think that's great. As the dungeon master, you're already spending significantly more time interacting with the game than any other player at the table. And sometimes, depending on what you prep or the style of game you're playing, especially something that like maybe a West Marches or anything like that, there's a chance that you may be spending more time on your game or campaign than any of the players combined sometimes. So I don't think it's not your job to curate it for other people at the table. I think that you need to have the lion's share, the lion's share of the game needs to be built towards your specific predilections more than all the other players. And that's because you're going to be interacting with them much. Like, you should not agree to run a game that you're not going to enjoy. Because that's just going to set yourself up for a lot of failure as a dungeon master or game master. If you have, maybe you have a couple different campaign ideas and you've got one you don't really like. Let's say, like I was a dungeon master, I was like, oh, I've got this one cool sort of sojourn idea. It's kind of a voyage or Marco Polo kind of expedition thing around the world style campaign. Like that's kind of campaign maybe I want to run. Then over here, maybe I'm like, oh, I've got this one that's kind of like a wartime castle siege kind of thing that I would be interested in running. And the third one's like, if I needed a third option, I don't really want to run this, but I'll throw it out there anyways. And maybe that's like Descent into Avernus. And all my players choose Descent into Avernus, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing Mad Max in Hell. It's not really the game that I wanted to run. So if you're offering that and it's a game you don't want to run, you're already starting off kind of in the area in which that campaign is likely to fail or not to be as enjoyable if you're not enthusiastic about running it. Because again, in addition to the however many hours you're running it at the table, you then have to do the preps work outside of it. You know, potentially less because you're running a published module, but still, if you're not interested in the Avernus storyline, if you're not interested in the Infernal War Machines, if you're not interested in soul coins and everything that's happening with, what's her name? Azariel? Azariel. Not interested in Zariel's sort of story, it's probably not going to be good. Like, sure, it's going to be serviceable. Like, if you're a dungeon master trying to do your best job as a dungeon master, it'll be serviceable, but it won't be, you're not going to bring the excitement that you should be bringing as a dungeon master to be like, I am excited to create and show off these things for you. Especially, like in any good published module, your players will veer off the path of the story, and you probably have to make up some stuff. So if you're not interested in making up stuff for the Nine Hells, it's probably not going to be great. That's why I'm like, you first and foremost, you are the first among peers in that way. So you should take your players' specifics into the idea. So instead of running, so you should run a game that you want to play, but you can also run, you don't necessarily want to run a game that none of your players want to play either, unless you're willing to look for a new group to maybe run for. If you're like, I like these players, they don't want to, I know they're not going to want to do this specific type of campaign. Maybe I've pitched it twice and they've been like, no, we don't want that. I really want to run this campaign. The only way you're probably going to do that is be willing to look for a new group rather than trying to strong arm your players into playing it. Which is actually not very difficult to do. If you agree to run games as a dungeon master or game master, the ability to find groups is easy. You are spoiled for choice. You need to find that sort of sweet balance that will keep you and your friends engaged in a game. So you should sort of be nice, but don't let your players bully you about what you're going to play. As a DM, you're the kind of the hot commodity. There's always more players looking for a dungeon master or game master than dungeon masters or game masters looking for a group of people to run for. So you don't really need to put up with bad players or players who are going to, kind of socially pressure you to do stuff that you don't want to do. You don't really need to put up with that. So, and as part of that journey, yes, you're going to come across bad players. There's no way you're not. Even if you only play with people that you know, like friends and family, it's unavoidable. I have plenty of good friends who are lousy people to play D&D with. And there, on the vice versa of that, there are people who I play D&D with, or have in the past, that I necessarily wouldn't do anything with except play D&D. They're not people that I want to hang out with or spend a bunch of time with socially or go to events with or have over for dinner or anything like that. I only kind of hang out with them when we're playing D&D. So it's kind of both. You'll experience probably both as you go through it. And if you get in a situation where you want to do something and your players start complaining about it, the easiest response I find is to tell them, hey, if you don't like it, we can pause the campaign and you can run your campaign for a while. And for most players are players only and never running. Their answer is going to be like, oh, no, that's you keep running. That's fine. If you give them an option that they're probably not going to take. Now, occasionally somebody might be like, yeah, I want to run a one shot of that. Then you let them run a one shot. And the best thing is you get a break. And if everybody likes it, everybody likes that campaign, and you guys swap over, no harm, no foul. Guess what? You get to be a player now. So you are forever DM no more. Now, if you want to be forever DM, that's probably a problem, I guess. But I don't find a lot of people that's very rare that people want to be the forever DM. That's the rarity rather than the rule. Yeah, exactly, Chasa. I only enjoy your company when you're pretending to be someone else. There are people that I played with that'd be like, I don't agree with your maybe social political views and maybe some other stuff, and be like, I just wouldn't hang out with you except if we're playing D&D. Like you said, only if you're pretending to be somebody else. That would be the only time that I want to hang out with you. Yeah, no, it happens. Sometimes the D&D group, and they get sequestered off in, oh, you are my D&D friends. Sort of like having work friends or school friends. Oh, we're friends in this one context. Outside of that, we're probably not going to hang out a lot. The needs must, in a way. So yeah, always give them the option. Don't shoot them down. If they want to run something, that's generally great for most DMs. They're like, yeah, sure, I'll take a 2-week break, and you guys can run a like 1 or 2 shot. Sure, no problem. It gives me plenty of time to prep and think about the game that I'm currently running, and you get it out of your system. Or if everybody loves it and we swap over campaigns, I might be sad that my campaign dies. Oh no, I'll have a little grieving ceremony, and then we'll move on. And I'll think about, I get to play. All right. So, it's nice. So, I think we've kind of built that. It's pretty important to know the styles, to have an idea about the styles of play. And understanding your styles and the style of the people around you at your table to try to figure out what's going to be the best style of game, or what's going to be the best goal for the game that you're trying to run. So how do you get started with that? Well, first it's going to be by identifying the major types. So we've talked about this before. I've talked about it on the blog. It's very common knowledge, but we're going to go over it anyways. Like I said, this is sort of newer DM focus. We're going to focus in a little bit on that. So you've got a group of friends. We need a little bit of information about how they are as players, and a little bit of introspection where we try to figure out as a dungeon master, game master, exactly who we are as a player. So these major archetypes, there's just a handful of them. They go by a lot of different names, but these are the names that I generally use, even though I believe that I changed this in my later example. And actually, I'm going to change it now. It's one that's called the Watcher, but I actually like the term Observer. Watcher is a little weird to me. I think it's just negative connotation to things like watching. Seems like more of a creep sort of activity, which is not what we're trying to describe necessarily. All right. So our major playstyle archetypes. So we're going to go through here. Do you want me to show this? Nah, there's only a handful. We'll push through these really quickly. They're in alphabetical order. Well, they were until I turned Watcher into Observer. We're going to fix that later. We're not going to worry about that right now. So the first up is the Actor. So a Actor is any player who loves to sort of inhabit the character and be them, the person. When things go wrong, they are often the person who's like, well, that's what my character would do. when they're not playing with the group. So that's sort of the bad stuff. On the good stuff, they're always a player that you can rely on to generally not metagame. They're generally not going to do that. They're going to love that social and RP game pillar. They really want to focus in on that. They want to be that character, speak as that character, act like that character, and they'll roleplay as that character. Their character is the focus. It is sometimes a problem, like I said earlier, and another thing is they sometimes have sort of like main character syndrome, some things like that kind of come up. I think this is a style of player. Well, I've got some fun. I'm going to describe them with fun, quippy things that I sent to friends for a recent, or actually the current campaign that I sent them. So we're going to go back over these real quick. That'll have an idea, just a quippy, almost snarky kind of expression. But that's what you need to know. Actors love to be the character. These are actors, and they become the characters. After the actor is the explorer. Explorers like to go through the world. They want to plumb dungeons. They want to explore the world. They want to discover and uncover secrets. They want to find out how the stuff ticks. This is the sort of person who asks you about like the world lore and stuff like that, just because they're interested in learning about it. They want to learn more about the religion, and maybe they want to trudge through the wilds. And when they come across the ancient ruins, the people like trying to figure out, okay, who built these ruins? How long ago? What happened to them, that sort of stuff. That's very explorer-coded stuff. In addition to that, they are also the people who like to engage the most with the explorer or exploration pillar of the game. 3 pillars of the game, of course: combat, social RP, and exploration. So exploration includes sort of overland stuff like hex crawling through the wilderness, bushwhacking through jungles. They are the ones who are looking out for traps and solving puzzles in the dungeons. That's their mode of play. They're the ones doing sometimes they're doing the riddles. Sometimes that's another person who's doing the riddles. But they like that stuff. This is very like, explorers are going to like movies like Indiana Jones. That's sort of their idea. They want those adventure movies. It kind of has a good mix of all that stuff. After the explorer is the instigator. So instigators are generally seen, I think, by a lot of people as a bad type of player. They are the wild card, the maverick. They're the one that, if nothing's happening, they're going to make something happen. So that's the one that's kind of, if you're having a drawn-out discussion in a tavern with an NPC, and they're like, I got bored, so I started a tavern brawl. That's an instigator. Generally, I think the general consensus is often seen as their bad thing. I don't think that they're necessarily a bad thing. There are ways that instigators can be a really, really good thing for a group. Oftentimes, if you have an instigator in the group, your group's never going to get stuck. Sometimes, I think if you run games for a little bit, you're going to run into situations where the group sits down, starts to have circular conversations about what they're going to do and what they're going to do next, or trying to figure out a puzzle or something like that, and the instigator's like, I don't know, I press the red button and see what it does, rather than discuss what the red button's going to do anymore. After 10 minutes of talking about what the red button, whether they should or should not touch the red button, the instigator goes and slaps their hand down on it and just pushes it, and it's like, I push it and see what happens. So it's good in that way that they could be a tool, a helpful tool as a dungeon master or game master, to be like, I know if I throw a treasure chest in the middle of the room, the instigator's gonna open that chest. And everybody's going to be like, that's either a trap or a mimic. And instigator's going to be like, I don't care. I'm going to open it anyways. Or badger the rogue and whoever's playing the rogue until they try to open it. So that's an instigator. Sometimes misunderstood. Can be a good thing. Can also be a very bad thing. So it is definitely one of the ones I think you need to watch out a little bit more for. You have to be a little bit more careful about. After the instigator is the power gamer. This is a sort of player who likes tangible rewards. They are a primary game loop player, meaning that they want to do whatever gets them experience and gets them to level up, so that way they can amass more power to gain more magic items, so that way they can optimize for more power, so they can take on more difficult things to get more power ad infinitum, the entire time. That is how they like to play the game. They want levels, they want loot, They want magic items. They're seeking often after power for its own sake in the game. So really great. They're usually really good at doing the things that they want to do in the game. Sometimes they can be really myopic and focused, where they're like, I only want to do the thing that gives me the rewards. It's a little bit of a Skinner box situation. Is that right? The right yeah, that's the right. No, that's not the right. That's not the right experiment. I'm thinking about the pigeon one. Anyways, but you can't remember the name off the top of my head. You know what it is? The pigeon pecks the button, gets the seed. That's not a Skinner box, right? No, Skinner box is you don't know what's in it. Okay. Closely related to the Power Gamer, but not quite the same, is the Slayer. So the Power Gamer does, once that primary game loop, they want to do the thing that gives them the XP, which in D&D and most TTRPGs is combat, so Power Gamers tend to be very combat focused. That tends to be the thing they like to do, because it's the thing that gives them the tangible rewards to become more powerful, in which they're better at combat. Next to that is the Slayer. These are the people who really love combat for combat's sake. Actors act, explorers explore, slayers slay. Very easy of those three. And so each one of them kind of focuses on their specific pillar of play. Actors really going to love the social RP. Explorers really going to love the exploration pillar. Players are really going to want that combat pillar. So these are, like I said earlier, these are sort of beer and pretzel gamers. Oftentimes, they love kicking down doors and killing goblins. That's the primary thing they want to do. They're not as much big on sort of like any sort of like grand saving the world storyline. They're not super interested in the narrative. They're fine with it generally, but they're not like, this is the thing we want to do. That's going to be our next person. But they're the ones that's like, if we go through a session where we don't have combat, they start to get like itchy trigger fingers. These are sort of people that's maybe sometimes it's the instigator, sometimes it's the slayers. Like, yeah, I don't know, I kill a random NPC just to do a little bit of violence. Are there more undertones that we should look at in the person? Maybe not though. Maybe they're just like, I'm bored, I want to kill something. I have all these stats and all these weapons and all these spells, and I just want to kill monsters, and so that's what I'm gonna do. So next to the Slayer is the storyteller. This is the person who first and foremost wants a good story, a good narrative or plot that has a nice resolution that kind of comes out of it. They're here for the story, essentially. They're the ones who play the video game for the story, not necessarily the gameplay. So they might play it on super duper easy mode, just because they want to enjoy the story. So the storyteller is really great because they make this active effort to sort of manifest a great story. They can be a bit of a dungeon master or game master's pet. They can be really helpful for that, because they're often working support with the dungeon master to kind of make the story happen. I find that a number of dungeon masters or game masters who have been around, like veteran ones, sort of empathetically manifest this style when they play. Because I think there's a point where when I'm a player and I'm seeing the dungeon master and I think I understand what the dungeon master is trying to do, and I see that the parties maybe, the rest of the groups maybe not jumping on that plot hook. I'm like, all right, well, my character's going to stand up and get interested in this because I feel like this is important, that this is something that the DM's trying to do. This feels like this is supposed to be the story. So I'm going to grab onto this. We're going to see what happens. We're going to try to make it better. So they're very similar to the actor, except the actor is totally sort of insularly focused on being the character. The storyteller's like, my character is kind of a servant of the overall narrative, and I'm a little bit more flexible or loosey-goosey as to any specific situations, and sort of where I said that the actor is likely to be the sort of person who says, that's what my character would do. And the storyteller is the sort of person who's like, how do I make my character do the thing that I don't think that they would do? How do I get them? And it's different ones where the actor kind of sees that as a hard stop, as a roadblock, and a storyteller kind of sees that as a hurdle, and like, okay, how do I bend things to get there? Because that's where I need to be for the story. So it's slightly different. After that is the thinker. And the easiest word I can say for this is like tactical. This is a tactical player. This is the sort of person who optimizes gameplay, but often in a way that's different from the power gamer. Whereas the power gamer is looking to grow strength, to grow power. Maybe that's a good way to do it. The power gamer is focused on growing power. The thinker is generally more focused on how do I be efficient with the power that I have. They're always they want to be tactical, they want to be efficient. This is the sort of person who really wants to manage the resources, and so they jive very well with a bunch of different play styles. So they can jive really well with like the power gamers and the explorers because they're often focused on the resource management, or they're focused on how do we get through this combat most efficiently by teaming up and having tactics and strategy. They can do that a lot of ways. The quote I have is, I love it when a plan comes together. What's the best way to beat this combat? Here's a good example. What's the best way to beat this particular combat? The power gamer is going to be like, oh, we're going to use these specific tactics. We're going to run in there and do that. The actor's like, oh, okay, I'm going to maybe go in. I think that we already have the overwhelming odds in this, so I'm actually going to go in there and maybe try to intimidate them or something like that. And I think your player might be like, okay, the best way to get through a combat, which is a resource management aspect, is to, how do I not fight this combat? Can I bluff my way through it? Can I sneak around it? Can I bribe them? How do I get the object that I want, which is generally getting to the other side of the room, if it's like a dungeon? How do I get to the other side of the room and through the next door with the least use of my limited tangible resources? And so thinkers are a very specific type of player. They can also, if you really let them, they will, in the same way, there's a quote about video games development. It's that given the opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of the game. Thinkers can do that. They'll be like, oh, well, if I don't ever want to do the combat encounters because the combat encounters are an attack on my resources that I might need later. They can be problematic players too. They're also typically quite good at what they do, so they can also, between them and some power gamers and slayers, they can really destroy combat encounters pretty quickly. So after the thinker, like I said, this was the watcher, but I changed it, so now it's out of order, is the observer. That's the last one. So the observer is the person who plays the TTRPG for the socializing aspect. They're there. They show up there. Sometimes you see these people as being really disengaged, always on their phone, or they're always like trying to show people like TikToks or videos or something like that. Often they can feel like they're really disengaged from the game as Dungeon Master, but once you realize that sometimes they are disengaged, sometimes there are other players who are just disengaged in the game. So that does happen. But generally with an observer, this is a person who's there for the social aspect of the game. They're there for the people around the table, not the characters in the narrative. If that makes sense. They're not there for the game itself, they're there for the people. So oftentimes the same person would be happy to play cards, like just playing cards, like, oh, let's play poker. Same sort of person might be like, let's have a weekly poker night instead of D&D, or hey, let's go to the bar, or hey, let's go see a movie, or I don't know, go do miniature golf or whatever. This is the sort of person who just wants to hang out with their friends. Oftentimes the observer can also be somebody who gets kind of dragged into a campaign. This can be like a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a sister or a brother, like a sibling or a cousin or something like that. Somebody who kind of, hey, we need an extra one person for our D&D campaign. Do you want to come and be part of it? And they're like, yeah, sure, I'd like to hang out with your friends. And then they end up being in a campaign, maybe for a long time, and they're like, my experience is that if they truly don't like the game, that they will fall off pretty often. I think that is one of the things that happened in not the game that I run, but the game that I play in, is we had a spouse who kind of got tagged along, and then after a while, it was like, I'm just not that into it, and kind of removed themselves from it. But also, they lost that social aspect, and it shows up every once in a while in kind of a weird way. So yeah, that's the primary, what I would consider the primary player types. I think there's 8 of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. There's 8 different ones. So again, that's actor, explorer, instigator, power gamer, slayer, storyteller, thinker, observer. Those are your different types. Now, one of the things you can do is really, really important to do is that it is very rare for any group to just be, or any person, any player, or DM, just be one of those. Generally, we contain multitudes. So generally, we have 2 or 3 primary ones that we kind of lean into. And I think the best way, you can ask your group to identify their play styles, but it's honestly very easy and more truthfully observed rather than asked by watching how they play. Now, if it's the first time you run the game, some of the stuff is you're not going to know. And you can ask your players beforehand, but if they're new players, they're not going to know for sure. And even players who've played for a while might not know much about the player types, so they might not know their player types very well. So if that's the case, you just kind of run a random adventure and then kind of start identifying the players' play styles that they have. And once you do that, once you play with people for a few sessions, and you make sure they kind of give them a mix of different challenges, make sure you hit all the pillars, you have some exploration stuff, you have some social RP stuff, and you have some combats in there. You'll see who starts to engage with which parts of the games more. Or if you have somebody who doesn't really engage in all of it, you'll be like, oh, that's probably an observer, somebody who's here for the social aspect. So generally it's easier to observe during play, because there is this weird thing that happens, and this is a very human problem, where we are not very good as humans at identifying the things that we think we're going to like or enjoy. We're just not good at it. It's just, we're really good at identifying things we don't like. Well, we're not necessarily very good at identifying things that we do like. So we kind of cut away things that we don't like in negative space, and kind of just whatever's left with us are the things that we kind of like. Again, I think this is like an ego thing. And ego like psychology, not like pride. Like it's this thing where we're trying to be in between sort of the super ego and the id, so the things that we really like then tied back into sort of like through that societal normality filter of the super ego to kind of create that middle space. So there are people who are like, oh, I really love horror movies, but then you realize that like they never watch a horror movie alone. You're like, okay, well do you really like horror movies? If you have to have somebody else to watch them with you. Maybe that's not the aspect you like. Maybe it's watching movies with friends that you like, and you just watch a lot of horror movies because you had good experience with them. So right, we're not very good creatures at understanding that. So it's hard to know if you're playing with a new group, and you're like, I don't know the player styles because I haven't played with them before. I can ask them, and maybe they'll answer, maybe they won't understand the question, maybe they'll wrongly identify themselves. This sort of stuff happens all the time. So you're like, okay, no worries, I'll focus on my own style. If you're a brand new DM, you're not going to know your own play style because you haven't played the game yet. If you run a few games, you probably start to have an idea, but you'll figure it out over time. So really, that's why my advice is in the very beginning with a new group or as a new dungeon master, it's just play a lot of adventures that are going to hit all 3 pillars pretty equally, and then one of the things that you do as a dungeon master is you have sort of this game layer, so it's the game layer that you're paying attention to, and then there's a second layer that kind of sits on top of that, which is kind of the social layer, where you're paying attention to the people playing the games, including, hopefully, yourself. You give yourself attention as well. You're like, oh, I really like this, or, oh, I was going to say somebody's name, but why do that? Player 2 seems to really enjoy this combat, and they're getting a lot out of it. Okay, so I know that they're either some sort of slayer or power gamer or something. They really enjoy the combat, some aspect of this combat. And over time, you'll start to figure out those styles. And those styles are not a permanent thing either. Those styles, your gameplay style is going to change. Is going to change throughout your career. If your career as a dungeon master or player, as you play, it will change. I know when I first started out, I was because of the edition I started playing, and obviously I had a lot of exploration kind of aspects in it, because I really kind of came around in sort of second edition is when I first sort of cut my teeth on D&D on that rule set, and I was like, oh, okay, so there's It's very exploration focused still. And then when I came back to D&D, it was very much 4th edition, and that was because I pretty much skipped all of 3rd edition. I came back in 4th edition, that's very sort of tactical, power gamey, so power gamer, thinker kind of play. And then moving to 5e, we got a lot more actors, a lot more actor-focused, kind of storyteller-focused thing. So that will change over time. It will change through the different people you play with. Because I think as you play with people with different styles and you see those styles done well, and that may spark something in you or change something with you, or you get tired. Like I said, one of the things that for me is that I for a while played in a very, very heavy power gamer focused group. And so after a while, I just kind of burned myself out on it. And so now I'm not much of a power gamer anymore. But when I was in it, I was super into it. But now I'm to the point where it's like, I prefer to spend more time playing the character than building the character. So that kind of takes me out of the power gamer loop. So it will change over time. So my current ones, if we want to talk about my current ones are Explorer, Storyteller, and Thinker. Is generally how I play. So let me talk a little bit about that. So the Explorer, still Exploration Pillar is my favorite. It's the one that I put my players through the ringer. I make them do hex crawls because I enjoy it. I like seeing that's like sometimes the most difficult thing about the adventure is getting from point A to point B. I like that. And looking at traps and trying to solve them, trying to go around them, figuring out dungeons as you're going through them, the pathing of them, how they loop around, what's going on, seeing both the ruins and understanding sort of that lore aspect of what's going on here. I like all that stuff. And discovering parts of the world, and like that. And that's one of the reasons why my hex stocking has a bunch of points of interest. That are like, and here's a landmark. There's a waterfall here. This is important. It's an important landmark. We might learn some more about that. One of the things that I put in a hex point of interest recently when I was working on my Arctic area is I put there's this giant dragon that's facing the coast in this mountainous area. Giant statue of a dragon, like sort of rampant, like up on its hindquarters. And it has all these sort of gibbets that are hanging from it. With, dead bodies in various decay. Be like, oh, so that's just a cool location for you guys to explore. What is it? You want to learn out more about it? Who are the people that were here? What did they do? Why is it facing the coast? Is this a warning for people? All that sort of stuff. Exploration very much tickles my brain. On the storyteller aspect, I want a good story. I tend to run a very sort of PC focused kind of game. Like I want to find out what the players are going to find interesting, what they're going to bring to it. So I try to do a lot of work with their understanding their backstories very early on, trying to figure out how to weave that into the narrative. Generally, I kind of plan a campaign a little bit like a reverse funnel. So at the beginning, like everything's kind of open. You guys can futz around. Like kind of generally do like a hex crawl. It kind of depends. So in some campaigns, I'll run a short published adventure for something like first level. And that gives me time to kind of work on the background of the world and stuff like that. So I don't have to worry as much about prepping a specific adventure. Because usually I'll run an adventure that I've run multiple times before. So it's kind of a bulletproof adventure for me. It's short. I know it's probably going to take 2 or 3 sessions. And that gives me a few weeks to work on sort of bigger stuff that's going on. And then maybe kind of dump them in a hex crawl where they can kind of see some different areas, local areas, find out what they're interested in, meet some NPCs, kind of understand maybe some factions about faction play that's going on, things of that nature. And then when I feel like they jump on a plot hook or they take a bite at something, kind of like fishing, they strike at the lure. Okay, now I know that you struck on the lure, and now I start building that funnel. So the funnel's very open mouth, and then as it kind of goes up, I guess I should just make the funnel metaphor correctly. So at the top of the campaign, it's very open. It's just it's a lot of fact finding, putting some feelers out there, trying to figure out what people are going to be interested in. And then, of course, as they hit plot points or really jive with very specific NPCs, then the funnel gets smaller. It's like, okay, these are the parts that are important. Then as we do more adventures, these are the parts that are important, all the way down until it becomes really focused at the end. Now, I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but it's the way that I do it. So there's some people who just want to run out of the book, and that's perfectly fine too. But as a storyteller, that's what I want to do. So I want to get a lot of investment early on with the players. I need them to invest in things like their backstory and things that are happening in the area. And then from there, I'll start start investing into a story that kind of combines these elements that people have identified as the things that they find important or they want to explore further in the game. And then trying to make things match up. That's very storyteller. Trying to take all these disparate parts and then put it together. And then the other aspect of me is thinker. I can be a problematic player sometimes because I am sometimes the person who is like, we actually don't need to fight this combat. I'm going to walk around it. And some dungeon master is like, oh, I planned this encounter and expecting you to fight it. And it's like, I don't want to fight these guys. I have no reason to fight these guys other than they're in my way. So maybe we pay them or distract them or sneak around them or anything else. So I can be that sort of person, but it also means that I tend to do pretty well as a combat as both a player and a dungeon master. And as a dungeon master, it means I also make often very difficult combats. To my player's chagrin, often. I am a DM who's like, I'm not gonna. I stay within the budgets. Like I'm not doing anything super wild, but I am gonna make it a more clunky combat. As in, there's gonna be some extra stuff that's going on, and they're gonna kick your butt. Generally, sometimes I throw easy combats. I mix it up. But sometimes I turn on the gas and we're really going to kick your butt. I'm not the sort of dungeon master who has the problems like I can't challenge the players. I don't have those problems. I have the opposite problems. Like, how do I ensure that this encounter doesn't kill my players? Doesn't kill their players, the player characters. That's usually the thing I have to do. Like recently I ran a Sturge encounter, a new combat encounter in the one shot that we did with Clovis on the Run. That we talked about this I think last stream. But the idea is there's a Sturge attack, there's a swarm of Sturges, and then there's individual reinforcement Sturges that come at the end of each round. And they hang out for a round, and if they're not killed, they basically link up with the Sturge swarm and give it hit points back. Now, as a party that doesn't have a lot of AoE attacks, swarms are actually pretty tough on them. So having a swarm that can heal itself can heal itself in two different ways, because obviously if they strike you and latch onto you, then they also suck your blood, because they're big mosquitoes, and get hit points back that way too. So if you're not careful how you go about the combat, it can get really deadly, because the longer the combat goes on, the more deadly it kind of becomes. So yeah, those are kind of my three personal styles. Let's see, we'll move on. We talked about making their own squads, yeah. So if you follow the line of thought, that should help align the game style with you and your group's expectations. So I find that most people have about 2 to 3 primary play styles. And so once you know those and you can kind of mix those together with your own and your players that you've kind of identified, and that'll give you a pretty good idea of the style of game that you want to play. So if you've got a Slayer and a Power Gamer in there and a Thinker, you're probably going to want to run quite a bit of combat. Because those are 3 pretty combat-focused archetypes. But if you have an actor and a storyteller in there, they're going to want quite a bit of social RP, where they can kind of do that stuff. If you have a storyteller and an explorer together, you're probably going to be running quite a bit of exploration kind of stuff, as well as Thinkers do. Thinkers kind of go all over the place. I guess Thinkers... I would say the Thinkers probably interact the least with maybe the social RP aspect of that, because they only look at the social RP pillar as a means to an ends. Generally, they're very goal focused. They'll be like, okay, I want to... Like I said, if we want to avoid a combat, we talk to the people and maybe bribe them or something like that. But I'm doing that with a goal in mind. I'm not just being like, oh, I just want to talk to the bugbears, because I just want to see what the bugbears have to say. Thinker generally doesn't care about that. Storyteller will care about that. Actor might want to have the interaction with the bugbears, just as a kind of a experience. So that's talking about the players and you yourself as the dungeon master. Let's move on and talk a little bit about game axes. Game axes are a very fancy way to basically say sliders that are going to help you better tune in the game elements to align them with the group style that you want. Once you've kind of identified that group style, these are kind of your game goals, the goals for your game. And for these, this is where I'm going to swap over. So you guys can see it, because there's basically a bunch of questions. This is what the questions that I kind of use when I'm building out a new campaign. So this was top of mind recently because that player who got exited sort of from our campaign because of their scheduling conflict was asking me for this just recently because they wanted to use it because they're going to try to get a game going on a different night for them that will work better for them, different time and place. All right, let's go back. Here we go. Pow, pow, pow. We got them. All right, so there's our game axes. The first one is sort of who's driving the story, and these are things that I ask for the players all the time, and then try to ask of yourself too. Do you want a plot railroad or a character sandbox? Like those are your two endpoints. Like try to figure out where you are in the middle. And I feel like I should go back in here and add a little bit more language that says that I'm looking for kind of a spot in between, because I did feel like last time that I gave this out that I had people that were just like, oh, I want more of a character sandbox. But if I don't know the positioning of that, is it all character sandbox? So really it's a scale, so it means like 0 through 10, which side are you on? So all this really means is like, I just want to know who players want to drive the story. From the plot railroad, that means like I'm busting out that Descent into Avernus. It'd be like, here is the game. We're gonna lay out the stuff in front of you. You guys are being like, hey, if you give us the plot, we're gonna jump on it. We're gonna follow the plot to its end course. It is sort of like a railroad, right? It's gonna go. There may be some switches, some different ways we can do stuff, but in generally, we're gonna start at point A and we're gonna end at point Z. And there may be a couple different spots where we have some choices in the middle, but in generally, it's kind of a straight shot from beginning to end. Not bad, just a very specific style of play. And on the other hand, you have the character sandbox, which is just like, I prepped this 50-mile radius area around this town. There's a bunch of dungeons here. There's a bunch of different factions doing different things. You guys engage. You guys go. Do whatever you want to do. You explore everything. You map out the wilderness. You come across these things. You plumb the dungeons. Generally, with a character sandbox, it's very sort of character-driven. So it's very important when you have that mode of play that each player and their player character has goals, like independent goals or things that they maybe want to work together with the other people in the party. So that way they provide the motivation for adventure rather than the plot being provided to them. It's a very different style of play. It's very similar to, or I guess sort of the capstone, or maybe we should say cornerstone. And let's say foundation. A foundation for things like West Marches style of play, where it's like, oh, we have a big group of people and random people are going to show up. And then I'm going to run a game for them. And most of the time, that's going to be a wilderness hex crawl. Like, okay, you guys came together. You guys are all going out adventuring. Where are you going? What are you looking for? And then session to session, they kind of create their own narrative over time. Those are the two there. They really want to figure out where people are on the middle. I feel like a lot of more newer players, or people who came in sort of 5th edition, so 2014 on, very much fall in sort of the plot railroad. I don't feel like D&D 5e 2024 does a good job of kind of introducing or showcasing sandbox style play, because really you only have the one module where it actually kind of came up in published adventures, and that's Tomb of Annihilation, because you have the jungle hex crawl for Cholt. But even in that, you are very, very much trying to get to the Tomb of Annihilation. You just have to find it. But there's a lot of like NPCs and faction stuff and other things that kind of go on in the hex crawl. So even in that, it's not really a character-driven sandbox. I do think maybe something that's a little bit closer to Rime of the Frostmaiden has a little bit more of a character sandbox, where you can start in any of the 10 towns and jump back and forth and do different things, and you don't have to hit them all, and it's up to you as to what you want to focus on. So beyond that is how much wonder and discovery do you want in the campaign? And these, again, sliders, so I'm giving you basically the endpoints, and you try to figure out the spot in the middle. You can easily find info about anything encountered in the world, which means there's a very low level of discovery, like things are very much known. You just, not necessarily that you know them, or that your player character knows them, but it's definitely easy to find that information. Versus a full discovery game where there is little to no precedence on what you find in the world. That means that you're in the deep wilds, and the first time you come across like myconids, that's the first time anybody's ever seen mushroom people. You have no idea how these people work. You don't understand how they communicate. They spores you, and you freak out because you don't understand that that's their communication vessel or communication means. That sort of thing. What's the genre you want in the campaign, and when you don't, this is again where we're kind of whittling away negative space. You want to do action and swashbuckling. Cool guys don't look at explosions. Something that's kind of dark. Everything is awful. Consistent moral quandaries. Some sort of gritty verisimilitude. You want to deal with things like disease and exposure and resources, and wounds are a really serious concern. Something like this will tell you a lot about the style of game you want to play, because there are games that kind of focus on that, where wounds are really serious. I'm thinking of Pendragon. So in Pendragon, getting in a fight is a really bad idea, because one wound can kill your character. Because again, it can get infected and you die. But Pendragon is also a game in which you're playing a legacy lineage style of game. So if you have a character that dies, that's not the end of the story. Generally, you have some sort of heir who takes up the mantle, because you're playing as knights. So somebody who's from your house that takes up the banner and becomes sort of the primary PC. You can play intrigue or noir, so detectives, heists, politics, spies, cloak and dagger kind of stuff. Builder or explorer, things that are interesting like Minecraft, Dragon Quest builders, community building, hex crawls are really good. So it's like you drop in an area, you get kind of dropped in the middle of nowhere. So if you have people who are interested in things like Rust or Minecraft, the sort of people who are like, oh, I'm just dropped in the middle of nowhere and I got to figure out how to build this and then make a community and all that sort of stuff. These are people who are really good for campaigns that are like that. War does what it says on the tin. So that if you want to play a war story, and wars are a little bit difficult to do in D&D. Now, of course, you have MCDM that's put out things like Kingdoms and Warfare that have very helpful ways on how to run sort of mass combat and stuff like that. It's a little difficult to do a war story because D&D characters don't really fit super well narratively into some sort of like military structure because of their weird power curve. They're so much more powerful than the average person. So really, they're sort of like war is a background thing that happens all the time, and the player characters are in that. Now, I have played some games with some third-party rule sets that basically allow you to be magic special forces. It's very cool. It was for 4th edition, and it was a supplement that you could do, and you were basically like a D&D SEAL team. And you would special forces that would get dropped in. You had these points that you could spend. You could pull in like airstrikes from mages and dragons and stuff like that to soften up targets. Very interesting. I only played it a few times, but it is quite fun. But it is a very specific style of play, so everybody's really got to be on board for like a war story. And then, of course, to finish it out, we have weird and horror. So these are going to be the sort of people who are into things like Call of Cthulhu, body horror, cosmic horror. Ghosts, goblins, undead. Yeah, weird and horror stories. So if you want stuff that's weird and different, they're going to generate or gravitate towards that. Oh, how many game systems have you played? You mentioned 5 so far. Or some deep cuts. Blue Rose. Yeah, Blue Rose, a bit of a deep cut. I like the Fantasy Age system, so. Or Fantasy. Oh gosh, what's it called? It's the Age system. The Fantasy Age, and then Blue Rose is also now in the Age system. So I do like the Age system quite a bit. How many systems have I played? I don't know how many systems I've played. I've played quite a few, and I've read even more. Played a lot of World of Darkness, so a number of the games in that setting, both old and new, and Chronicle now, right? That's a third rendition of what used to be White Wolf. Pathfinder 1 and 2. Again, kind of skipped D&D 3rd edition, but I played some OSR stuff, OSE, Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Haven't played Knave or any of those things yet, and yeah, so a lot of different ones. Do I have a group that's willing to Rolodex through so many different rule sets? Right now, no. I used to play with a group that we ran through a bunch of systems pretty quickly. We would have a battery of stuff that we'd go through where we play Pathfinder, then we play D&D, then we're going to play Vampire, and then we're going to play Werewolf, and then we're going to play Call of Cthulhu, and then we're going to play Fate, and then we are going to play Shadowrun, and then we're going to play... we never got around to Cyberpunk. We were going to play Cyberpunk, but we never got around to it. We're going to go back and do Savage Worlds, and yeah, and so we just kind of run through the gamut. That's a group where we have quite a few... Basically, everybody in the group at some point would run a game. So when you have a game that's got a whole bunch of Dungeon Masters in it, and a bunch of Dungeon Masters generally want to play systems that are not just D&D, that helps. So if you find a group that has more Dungeon Masters in it, or Game Masters in it, they're more likely to be interested in playing some different games. Hey, what's going on? So, yeah, so my actual number of how many I played, I'm not sure. Quite a few. Quite a few. I don't really keep it. Most things on my shelf. I have not played Worlds or Starts Without Number. And I haven't played Traveler. That's probably the biggest, like, cornerstone game that I haven't played is probably Traveler. Just because Traveler would be one of the ones that I would find difficult to find people to get who want to play. Just because Traveler's harder sci-fi, it's got a little bit of math that you kind of have to do with Traveler too. There's a lot of charts and math that you kind of have to do with Traveler when you're doing like jumps and tech levels and things that you need to keep track of. But I'm not sure that certainly my current groups the players would not be interested in doing that. Nothing. One of my groups has enough trouble getting through RME, which is the revised martial equipment in 5e, which is already quite a bit. All right, so we got through that. That was our what genre do you want to see in the campaigns and ones you don't. So just having to, just getting a 1 yes and a 1 no really helps it pull it down instead of like, put all of these in order. That would be really difficult to do for lots of people. So just pick me one that you're definitely interested in and one that you're definitely not interested in. I often find people don't want to do a war story. It's a very particular style of group that wants to do a war story. But lots of people are very interested in... also, similarly, not a lot of people are interested in gritty verisimilitude. They want a super gritty game. Get a lot of action, get a lot of intrigue, get a lot of horror and weird stuff. Those are kind of the big ones that people kind of go after. How advanced would you prefer the state of the world? Yeah, so this is a good one. This kind of tells me, so this, because this was the one that I used for my last campaign, is very specific to, I already knew that I was going to be running D&D. But if I wasn't running D&D, this would be the thing where you would add in something like, might add modern. We might add, might say near sci-fi. And then we might do like far sci-fi. Near sci-fi means something that's, maybe I should do it this way. Near/hard sci-fi, and then far/soft. So near hard sci-fi would be stuff that would be like Traveler. There were things that are very sort of technical. Far or soft sci-fi might be something like Starfinder, as opposed to Pathfinder. It's like, oh, but Starfinder's also full Magitech too. So how advanced do you prefer the state of the world? Do you want to do prehistoric, ancient world, Iron Age, medieval, Renaissance, full Magitech, modern, near synth? Obviously, like I said, I was running that, so you could kind of put other time periods in here if you wanted to. If you wanted to focus on like 19th century, because you want to run maybe Call of Cthulhu or something like that, you could add that in. Or 20th century, early 20th century. You can kind of like have people just tell you, kind of a fill in the blank if you want. Oh, you're DMing your first session later today. We're running Curse of Strahd. Any tips for Curse of Strahd? Don't run the Death House. So if that's your first session, I might point you towards something else. Yeah, don't run Death House. The lead-up adventure, it's not very good. I have run it and played in it, and as well as many other people who say that yeah, a Death House just isn't a very good module. It's very easy to kill like first level characters in there. Okay, you know you're gonna start at 3rd level. All right, yeah. First level, yeah, I'd say the opening for Strahd, keep it simple. Strahd, some of the random encounters are really difficult in Strahd. And some of the early encounters with some of the, like, the undead in the basement, those can go really badly very quickly, especially for a low-level party. But you're starting at 3rd level, so you should be, okay, they should be alright, but don't throw too many random encounters at them too quickly. That's probably my biggest advice. Let them, and then I'd say maybe let them feel out the sort of town area. What's the name of the first town that you start off in? I can't remember off the top of my head. Let them kick around in there before. Make sure that they get a chance to talk to the roamers that are in there, kind of understand the factions that are at play. Because if they don't understand the factions at play, things are going to be a little bit more difficult for them. They're going to have some question marks or some holes and things where putting some things together. So make sure that they get some of the lore up front and understand who's kind of wheeling and dealing in the lore. That's about it. And go easy on the random encounters to start out, because they can be real bad starting off. Alright, how much civilization would you like? Okay, so we have sort of our tech level, advancement for magic and technology, and then also how much civilization do you want. So one to the other end, like one settlement is the points of light theory, which is, again, I think came out in 4th edition, maybe 3rd edition. The points of light, which is like you have little cities, and then there's a whole bunch of like dark wilderness monster infested lands, and then another city. That's kind of a point of light. It's kind of, if you look at shots of like the Earth at nighttime, like from space, where you have like literal points of light and then a bunch of darkness usually around them, in between them, that's kind of the setup. That's how the civilization is set up. And then the other side of that is having a civilization that's highly structured, ordered, and interconnected, which is in the same way very close to how modern nation states are run today. So it just kind of depends on which one do you want. Do you want there to be basically a lot of strong government, not at all any government? And that kind of tells you, that will help tell you where adventurers kind of fit into the world. So if you have a bunch of small points of light, there's a lot of jobbing adventurers out there. They need to hire people who are willing to do a bunch of dangerous work because they don't have the infrastructure to deal with maybe the monsters and things like that. Whereas if you have a civilization that's highly structured, ordered, and interconnected, that kind of pushes adventurers further and further towards the frontier. So they're going to spend most of their time out among the wilds on the edge of the frontier. Maybe being an adventurer is not necessarily a legal trade. Maybe they do some, light smuggling, things like that. They can get mixed up, so very different kind of feel or flavor. One's very heroic, one's like, these are kind of like the dregs of society. People who can't fit anywhere else become adventurers. Have I DM'd Curse of Strahd? No, that's one of the ones that I have not DM'd. I've played a little bit of it. We didn't finish it. I played it, but I haven't run it. I know a little bit about the early stuff in it, and that's about all the information I can give you about it. I don't even own the book. It's just, Gothic horror is not my particular cup of tea. But it is for a lot of people, and it is a really good module, I know that. Yeah, but Curse of Strahd is not one that I personally have done. I don't run a lot of published adventures. I primarily run my own homebrew adventures. It's just a style choice. Because I feel like when I'm prepping a published adventure, especially a big book adventure, I'm spending as much time as I would be prepping my own adventure, and then I still have to make up points when they fall off of whatever the plot is for the book. So in the end, it's like, if I'm already prepping that much, I'm thinking about it that much, and coming up with my own content, I should probably just run my own thing. But that's a me decision. There is nothing wrong with running published adventures. I don't want to give that impression at all. They're very good, especially something like Curse of Strahd that's very well received. All right, rate the adventuring locations from most desired to least desired. And it's very easy. Like, do you want to do urbans and heartlands? So it's like, do you want to do a bunch of like city adventures and stuff that happens like in the farmlands and small towns around the area that are relatively safe for the most part? So, what's a good example of this? Like, I think you see things like in Assassin's Creed, or which are, I'm going to draw back on video games, even stuff like Baldur's Gate 3, the third act of Baldur's Gate 3, all urban and heartlands, right? You're in the little town outside of Baldur's Gate, you're inside Baldur's Gate, you're in the sewers, you're in the caverns beneath the city, you're underwater, you're doing all the crazy stuff. Marches and Frontiers, that's basic. Actually, you can do a lot of these with just Baldur's Gate 3, so let's do that. March and Frontiers, that's Act 1. That's Act 1 of Baldur's Gate, where you're in the town, you're in the Druid's Grove, you're doing all this stuff, you're going and doing the Goblin Camp. Very much Marches and Frontiers. There's a bunch of ruins that you're going through. And then Deep Wilds would be Act 2. So you could argue that a lot of Act 2 is... I guess once you get into sort of like the Shadowfell-ish region, it's a little bit more Marches and Frontier aspect. But that first part where you're in the Underdark, that's what I would consider like a Deep Wild situation. There's only like, there's not a lot of places that are really safe havens in there. And so there's a bunch of nasty monsters in there to deal with. So Underdark, going on, doing the jungles of Cholt, that kind of thing. Then we have, okay, so we have our sort of three, like, bounding areas. This is the same thing that I use when I'm doing my hex mapping to build it. Where I have, okay, there's Heartlands, there's Marches, and there's Wilds. So it kind of tells me what sort of points of interest are going to be there, what kind of things are going to come across. And in what volume. And then we have some extras in here. We have dungeons. I find this one really helpful to know how... What is the group's level of acceptance for dungeons? Some groups really like dungeon delving. Other groups don't want any dungeon delving. So you need to find out, you know, how often can you run dungeons? Because dungeons are, as a dungeon master, one of the easiest things to run. It's an enclosed area. You know what's going to be in there. You know everything that's going to happen within it. Rather than trying to run a big open world. So dungeons, especially as a new dungeon master, really easy to focus in on. Because you have a much smaller, controllable environment in which you're trying to run the game, which is really good when you need, as a new dungeon master or game master, you need those training wheels on. Very, very helpful, where you can make the binding blocks of the play area so small. So you have dungeons, you know, how often you're plumbing into the dungeons and finding that, and kicking down doors and killing monsters and doing traps and puzzles and etc, etc, etc. Expeditions and voyages, like I said, that Marco Polo kind of style. Voyage of the Dawn Treader, where you're going to maybe hit some different points of interest, maybe some different adventures along the way as you get from basically point A to point Z. And so the adventure is the friends we made along the way kind of style of play. I would definitely throw something like The Lord of the Rings in a lot of ways. Certainly Frodo and Sam's journey is what I would consider an expedition or a voyage. They start off in the Shire, they're going to Mount Doom. That's what they're doing. That's the story for them. Obviously, for the other characters, other stuff's happening. Obviously, you have all the Saruman stuff, and then you have all the Minas Tirith stuff. Minas Tirith, you're going to have all that stuff going on as well. But if you want to focus in specifically on sort of the Frodo and Sam aspect and sort of the beginning of the Fellowship, before the Fellowship's broken. And the last one is plains hopping. D&D's got a lot of plains in it. So if you want to hop to the City of Brass, and maybe you want to go to the Elemental Plane of Water, and then you want to go to the Beastlands, or a bunch of different areas you can go to and do that planar cosmology. Do you want to go to the Astral Sea and hang out with the Gith, or the Gith, which is just as confusing when you have GIF and GIT in the same area. So do a lot of that plane stopping stuff. You want to do spell jam or stuff like that. So those right there will give you a good idea of where the adventures are going to be set. And a little bit as to the nature of the adventures. Like, there are only going to be some sort of adventures. Same sort of adventure that's in the deep wilds probably isn't going to work out as well as in the middle of a big city. They already give you kind of a style of adventures that you can run. What is your preferred level of monster pervasiveness? And I like this one. This one is really helpful when you're looking for different types of games or game systems that you want to play. Like I said earlier that I really like the Age system, which is a 3d6 system, and was originally created as the tabletop version of Dragon Age, the video games. So the Dragon Age RPG, TTRPG. It's only then I'm not sure that I thought about it that much when I was playing Dragon Age Origins, the first game in the series, but definitely when I was playing the TTRPG, you realize very quickly, oh, the different types of enemies that are in this setting is very, very low. There are only a few different threats. You basically have humans, and you have the Darkspawn, you have trolls, you have a dragon. That's about it. There's not a lot of other types of enemies, so that was definitely a weakness in it. But you can play games where there's only humanoid enemies, especially if you're wanting to run like an urban campaign. Where monsters, man is the only monster. And you want to treat, in the same way, it doesn't mean that there's only humans in the world. You can also be like, treat all monsters, humanoids, as people with societies and cultures. The same way. So your goblins are just as civilized as your elves. Over here you have monsters are the stuff of myths and fairy tales. Like, yeah, of course, we have stories about trolls, but you've never known anybody who's actually like seen a troll or dealt with a troll. And then monsters are well known and often encountered. Hey, don't go down this route. Don't go down this path to the next city because there's always orc bandits around the area, orc raiders around the area. So it's really dangerous. Even though I realized that in that I used all humanoid style monsters, which was not a great example. Monsters are well known and often encountered. There are... I'm trying to think of a good... Dinosaurs. Sure, why not? There are a bunch of dinosaurs along that path. That's Cholt, right? There are a bunch of dinosaurs in there. Monsters are the stuff in myth and fairy tales. I said troll. Troll works for that. Man is the only monster. And you want to treat monsters from humanoids. I already talked about that. You could also be like, this is a setting if you're running something that kind of falls within this like genre or this specifically on this area of the dial. Where you'd be like, you can talk to the beholder if you want to. They're willing to have a conversation with you. You don't have to kill the beholder necessarily. They speak languages. They have thoughts and dreams. Now those dreams become other beholders, but that's a totally different subject. But you can talk to them and you can parlay with them if you want to. How lethal do you want the campaign to be out of 100? Rare. Permadeath is likely to occur at the hands of only named baddies or egregious player mistakes. Or common. You always need to keep a couple of backup characters in the wings because we're gonna meat grinder this thing. Different vibes. Just trying to zero in on where everybody's playstyle kind of is for that. Rank the encounter types from most to least desired. Set piece battles, those are the big ones that you make like terrain and stuff for. Skirmish combats, fast, frantic, often. Investigations, you want to do a bunch of clues and research and tricks and general figuring it out. Exploration, environments, hazards, obstacles, traps, trailblazing, all that fun stuff. Player challenges, these are things that challenge the players rather than their characters. Ciphers, mazes, puzzles, riddles, etc. Diplomacy, white hat social encounters where you're focusing on fame and negotiation and reputation building. You're going to be doing a lot of persuasion checks and a lot of insight checks generally. And subterfuge. Black Cat social encounters. So you're going to lie, cheat, steal, and blackmail people. So you're going to use your intimidations. You're going to use your intimidations, deceptions. Obviously, you're going to be using insight a lot there as well. And then, physical intimidation. So you're probably going to rough some people up with stuff like that. Might torture some people. That's a blurry line for a lot of players, so be careful with that. But yeah, definitely intimidate people, racketeering, all that sort of stuff. What's one thing you do and do not want to see in the campaign? And I just kind of ask them, my players, especially if they're people I haven't played with before or run for. Is there an item, a particular type of item, a certain place? Like maybe you're like, oh, I don't want to see scenes of torture, so like no, like dungeon kind of stuff. Dungeon, not like D&D dungeon, like to go get treasure, but like this is the torture chamber in the castle kind of thing. A specific type of NPCs or monsters or content types or safe play boundaries. This is where you ask for that kind of stuff. Like we have a player in one of my games who's doesn't like spitters. We give them some good-natured ribbing, but we do avoid having them show up in adventures. We were running one. My friend is running. Yeah, it's basically his own campaign now, but he likes to do this thing where he grabs like one of the anthology books and kind of starts out with that. And so that kind of gives him this idea. So we're doing a Saltmarsh campaign. So really not doing any of the Saltmarsh adventures. But there is a shipwreck, or a ship that is a random encounter you can come across that is supposed to be filled with a worshiper of Lolth, like a Lolth priest. But we have somebody in our group who's kind of, spider avoidant. So that's going to be a real problem when you're fighting the Drow Lolth priest. So this was it's a maritime campaign, so we're like, oh yeah, they're crabs. So we're like, yes, Lolth. The famous crabs of Lolth. Which, I guess you call them drabbers instead of driders? Drabs? Yeah, you call them drabs, huh? So a drow torso on top of a crab body, which is somehow, I think, more horrifying than a spider. But very funny. Very funny to have that encounter and be like, wait, what's going on? And then having to realize, oh, he's a priest of Lolth, and that's why they're crabs. Got it. But then it just made a weirder context, like, why is this guy on a ship with a bunch of spiders? That's weird. And it makes more sense that they're crabs, actually. Is there one specific homebrew rule or third-party supplement you want to use this campaign? This is helpful, too. Sometimes people want to play homebrew classes. Sometimes people want to, like, a lot of ones that might come up is a specific homebrew rule would be like, can I take a potion as a bonus action instead of a standard action? Like, yeah, that's a good one. We'll make sure to include that. And of course, as the DM, you get veto power over any of these. If they want to pull up some ratchet, broken-ass third-party class that's not good and take a look at it and be like, yeah, you absolutely cannot play this. This thing is not balanced at all. Then you get the veto power. Though hopefully that would be the reason you veto it, not just because you don't like it. And list in the order of the top 3 player archetypes that best represent how you play. I told you we would ask the questions, and we did. This is the one where I put in, and then I gave just kind of silly descriptions for my friends. So anybody who's an actor, they have that big theater kid energy. If you're a player that has a big theater kid energy, you're an actor. I have, for sure, 1 or more actors in my current group. An explorer, amateur fantasy realm documentarian. I don't think I have too many explorers. I got 1, I'd say, in my current party who's very interested, who's playing a cleric, who's very interested in that kind of stuff. And kind of what's going on in the world. The instigator, definitely had an instigator in the party. That is one of the people who exited, who's the person who's always going to make something happen. The observer, I play D&D for the vibes. Don't really have one. I'd say in the group that I play in, we have one who I would say probably has a tertiary observer. I think they would be they enjoy playing the game, but I think that they would also be happy if we played like a card game or a board game or something like that. I think they'd also still be happy with that. The instigator, it's always have a man come through the door with a gun, a clock. Be like, they're just gonna make things happen. I could have also put here, I pressed the big red button. Would also be the other thing I could have put in there. The power gamer wants to go harder, better, faster, and stronger. That's their thing. The Slayer, and I'm all out of bubblegum. They're just here to kick ass. The storyteller, you kids like Monomyth and the 3-act structure, who's going to try to like make sure that prophecy comes true in a fulfilling way. Who's going to be like, oh, this is definitely the story. I'm going to jump in here. Oh, we're definitely supposed to. It feels like we are. They do what they think that the game needs. The needs must. And the thinker, an efficient session is the objectively best session. Which, as somebody who is a bit of a thinker, yeah, it's kind of true. Unfortunately, I will optimize the fun of the game if I'm given the opportunity to. So I have to be careful. I try to be thoughtful of the people around me. And if you're also looking to match the right TTRPG rule set, so like I said, these questions that I had for the current campaign I'm on were all these previous questions. Those were, I understood that I was already going to be running D&D 5e in 2024. So I already knew that was already slotted in. But if I was going to try to figure out the right TTRPG rule set, in addition to those questions, I might look at, like, you want a more tactical game or a more narrative game? Do you want the players with precision combat and control and mechanics, those very crunchy kind of systems? Or do you want more of a free-flowing drama kind of style? Maybe something that's a little bit more like even going all the way towards something like LARP. Like I'm thinking about World of Darkness LARP that's got like the rock paper scissors system or Amber's diceless system, something like that. That's got a little bit different. Free-flowing drama. You could also be like I'd say that the Star Wars games like Edge of the Empire fit into that, where they have the dice system. It works like that, where they're kind of like, oh, good, bad, plus things that are boons or banes, kind of. Basically you roll a handful of dice, and that kind of tells you in a little bit more context, rather than just pass or fail, how well things go. Sandbox versus storyline, we already kind of talked about that one a little bit. Like I said, we're getting into the part that I'm still working on cleaning up. Yeah, and we're almost done here. Lethal cinematic and failure. Is failure dangerous and lasting, or dramatic but survivable? I have a little bit more lethality. I'm kind of like in the middle right now, because I do this thing in the current campaign that I'm running where when people get knocked down to 0, I tend to give them some sort of lingering injury that kind of stems from that, being like, oh, going down is actually really bad, because it might mean that you're going to be slowed for a number of sessions, or you're not going to be able to do two-handed tasks for a number of sessions, or maybe you have to take a bonus to a hit to your perception or something because you've got like a head wound, or mental staffs because maybe you got a bad concussion, and etc. So there's long-lasting things, but they are generally survivable. And rules heavy to rules light. You want to lean on the rule book or favor rulings on the fly. That'll depend, like, do you want to play something that's got a whole bunch of rules? Or do you want to play something that's got only a few rules in it? Where things are a little bit more loosey-goosey. How much adjudication do you want the DM to do? How much reign do you want them to have over the game versus, like, rules as written for system? And setting your goals together. Let's see. Yeah, this stuff down here, I'm trying to think if there's anything. I don't really want to talk about this because that's really more about setting up your campaign. This isn't about campaign stuff. I still need to reorganize some of this stuff. Handling style clashes, there we can talk about that. So we already had like each player kind of noting their top funds. That's kind of what the entire reason we're asking the question, so we'll have that. We're going to negotiate sort of any explicit trade-offs. Like, we're going to keep combat tactical, but run downtime freeform, right? You're not necessarily locked in to be like, oh, we have to follow very specifically the downtime rules as they're in there, or maybe we're doing that, but we're like, actually, we're going to run really heavily modified combat, or maybe even use, I mean, I guess technically you could use a totally different system for combat. I don't know why you would do that, but you could. Though I guess you could have things for, like, the current game that I'm playing when we're using that revised martial equipment rules, which is a very, very bolt-on 5e 2024 rule set for primarily martial characters, as the name might lead you to believe. So we're doing that, and that's very, very crunchy, very tactical. There's, like, we have multiple players who have flow charts about, like, how they do the combat, what they do on their turn. This helps out because things are a bit more crunchy. Got a little bit more to chew on with that combat, especially as a martial character. Be transparent, compromise openly. Don't surprise later. Yeah, don't tell people that you're going to run like a more of a Stardew Valley style of game and be like, we got about 4 sessions in, and then the town got attacked and everybody got slaughtered and crucified along the main road, and you're like, what? Your players are not going to be happy if they were trying to play Stardew Valley and you brought in like a New Vegas Caesar's Legion kind of situation. They're not going to be happy about that. Very, very different tone shift. So make sure everybody's kind of on the same page as to the game you're going to play. Don't have nasty surprises like that. Unless you guys have already talked about it and be like, oh, things are going to be normal up front, and then, like, things are going to get real bad real quick. And make sure everybody's okay with that. Takeaways: calibrate fun style intentionally, communicate it clearly, and revisit it periodically. Yeah, I do think it's worthwhile to kind of go back. I know I just did this. I already did this once in the campaign because I got in the feedback when I was from these questions that people really wanted a character sandbox style of game because they hadn't played that style of game. But then we started playing that style of game and they were ill-equipped to do that style of game. Then you realize, like, oh, like, nothing happens if I don't decide to do something. And they were like, we kind of need a little bit. Essentially, the conversation came out to, we need a little bit more hand-holding for that. So I'm like, okay, so we're going to pull it back and we're going to do a little bit more plotted stuff. So that's sort of the takeaway, is to revisit that. And then I had to revisit it as we exited PC, where I was like, okay, we needed to make a discussion, like, are we going to continue with this campaign once we go down in person? And the answer was, yeah, we want to continue with this, for sure. Fun is rarely accidental, it's maintained. Yeah, you need to construct the fun. I know it's not fun to do work and plan parties and do that stuff. But you're just going to have a better time if you put in a little bit of work up front. Now, as you grow and you are run more dungeons and run more games as a dungeon master or game master, a lot of this stuff will become very sort of second nature to you. You'll be like, okay, this person seems like they're really interested in this. This person's really interested in this. So I need to, and you won't necessarily always need this. And if you play with the same group again and again, you generally don't need to do all the questions and stuff like that. Once you'll have a pretty good idea of what they're interested in, and then you can only ask the questions that are going to be specific to maybe the style of campaigns that maybe you want to run. Make sure everybody's on board with it. Okay. Yeah, that's everything we were going to say about that. That took much longer than I thought it was going to, as is usual. So the next thing we're going to talk about, Dungeon Master PCs, and I'll throw this back here. But first, I'm doing a little dance, so I'm going to have to go take a bio break real quick. I'm going to use the bathroom, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about Dungeon Master PCs, and I think we might build a sidekick, because that is one of the things that we talked about with my current campaign, is like, hey, you guys are down to 3 characters, so you've lost some of your support. What do you guys want a Dungeon Master PC me to bring in, like a sidekick kind of character to help shore up some of those roles? Or you want to roll with 3 people? Because we have an artificer, a cleric, and a fighter. That kind of leaves us, we don't really have a roguey kind of person. They are, like I said, the combats I run are pretty tough, so they're like, we could kind of use some more healing. Even though if I added a healing character, they're eventually going to have the ability where 3 of the characters are going to be able to heal, and the fighter already has a second win where they can kind of heal themselves already, so everybody's got some amount of limited healing already. And And if that's the case, I talked about it with them and said like, all right, I'm thinking maybe bring in somebody who's like a ranger, who's got a little bit of healing. It's gonna have those sort of skills. Because the druid's kind of been out of pocket, so they don't have anybody who's got like that wilderness survival nature aspect covered up. So they need somebody with a little bit more exploration help. They need somebody who can give them a little bit of healing, additional healing, which the ranger will get access to healing spells. And yeah, those are kind of the two main things. And they just need maybe an extra person in combat, which is helpful too. They have a lot of range things, so I think I'll probably build somebody who's a little bit more melee, because they've got 2 range characters and 1 melee character. So I'll probably give somebody who's range is really good because they're a little versatile. They can kind of go ranged, but as well go melee. So I'm probably going to build more of a melee focused character, probably. But yeah, so I'm gonna stop doing this dance and go take my little bio break, and I think get some more coffee. Then we'll kick it off, and we'll come back, and we're gonna build this little ranger sidekick. So, and talk a little bit more about DMPCs in general, and maybe like what's maybe the right and what's maybe not the so right way to do it. So hang on tight. We'll be back in just a minute. Alright, I have plumbed the dark depths, communed with eldritch horrors, and gotten the black gold. Mmm. I can feel it surging through my veins. The dread caffeine's power. Great. So that was it. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys, talking about sort of the styles and setting up sort of these game goals to be able to make sure that everything kind of folds in correctly, understanding those player styles and trying to create a game that's going to, it's never going to be 100% match that everybody's always going to get what they want, but at least most people can get most of what they want most of the time, which is really all you can hope to shoot for. Let's talk about Dungeon Master PCs. Where do I want to work on this? I guess I should just open up a character sheet, huh? That's probably gonna be the easiest. Let me pull this up. All right. Now where did I put this stuff? I can't find that, Dave. Sorry, I'm looking for files. One moment, please. All right. Miscellaneous. TTRPGs. Game systems. Oh. We had a question earlier talking about what are the games that I've played. From Bearbeard. We'll talk about it. So not all of these have I played, but these are the ones that I have with me that I at least keep around, at least in PDF form. So I've got the Age system, which includes Blue Rose, Dragon Age, Fantasy Age, and Modern Age. Some of which I played, some of which I've only read. Anima. Anima is a wild D100 system that I have never found anybody who's remotely wanting to play, and after reading the book, I'm not sure that I still understand how to play the game. It's very pretty, though. Aria, similar situation. Ars Magica. Oof. Ars Magica is a beast system. If you want to play that long generational wizards kind of thing, if you want to be like a Merlin style character, this is what that's for. Where you're in sort of like a secret coven of like witches and magic magicians, and it's wild. Castle Falkenstein. Very steampunk style game. Very narrative focused. Cool game, a little bit old. Dungeons & Dragons, 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition, Beckmead 2024, and the D&D Silver Adventure game, 25th anniversary. Exalted. Exalted, again, if you want to see power gamers go burr, Exalted's a good game for that. It's got systems on systems. Very crunchy. Fate. Dungeons of Fate, Fate Accelerated, Fate Core. Different flavors of Fate. Ironsworn, I've got the cards back there. We talked about Ironsworn before on the trail. We're not going to go over that. Mouse Guard, Numenera. Under OSR systems, I put Lamentations of the Flame Princess, Old School Essentials, and Torchbearer. Paizo, we've got Pathfinder 1, we've got Pathfinder 2, we've got Starfinder 1. I don't have anything for Starfinder 2 yet. And I'm not inclined to look at Starfinder 2 mainly because I love the Starfinder 1 system so much. And I'm afraid that they will have done with Starfinder 2 what they did with Pathfinder 2, which I don't. I know. I'm one of those people. I just don't enjoy the Pathfinder 2 system. It is very much. The system to me as a character, all the characters feel like a collection of feats and not more than that. The characters, at least in my limited play experience, I never felt like the character was more than the sum of its parts, which is unfortunate. Savage Worlds. Why is Shadows of Veteran in here? That is in the wrong spot. We're just going to delete that real quick. That is definitely in the wrong spot. How did that end up in there? Scarlet Heroes. Shadow of the Demon Lord. Which I think... Nope, I just have Demon Lord in here. Shadows of Veteran. Some solo RPG resources. Star Wars Edge of the Empire. There's other that follow that same dice system. Very cool system. Need special dice for it. Sword and Shield, which is a sort of like an indie kind of game. Symbaroum, Traveler, White Wolf, Arete, which is sort of like ancient Greek hero kind of stuff. So Hercules, Achilles, etc. Dogs in the Vineyard, which is you play as Mormons, which is very interesting. Dungeon World, Earth Dawn, End of the World, Wrath of the Gods, Ex Novo, GURPS, Hackmaster, Marvel, Mazes, Modern Core, Stars Without Number, Tales from the Loop, The Expanse, Frystat, Warhammer 2e, Worlds Without Number. So those are the PDFs I have saved, but we'll get back on the train. All right, we were gonna do edition. Did I save anything? Certainly not. Okay. Woo, too far. All right, we need a character sheet. I don't know if this is the right character sheet or not. There's a form fillable character sheet that I have. It has one little screw up in it. This is the one, isn't it? Maybe it's not. Oh no, it is the one. I have one specific form fillable character sheet that's got a screwed up radio buttons where anytime that you say that you're trained in medicine, it also says you're trained in survival. And I can never remember which sheet it is. It is this sheet. I have another sheet somewhere. Maybe I've got it saved in my... I know that you guys can't see what I'm working on. It's fine. We're gonna get there. Don't interrupt me. Yeah, we'll use this one. It just means that I need to pull all the information out of it real quick. There's not a super handy way to do that. So we're just gonna do some hand editing real quick. I know I might as well move this stuff. You can see what I'm doing, working on. Come on. Yeah, now. Yeah. Here we go. All right, here. Let's let me throw it up in the workspace. Let's change our window capture. There we go. Here you go. We'll go ahead and make this. That's pretty big, but hey, it'll be all right. I know you can't see the very top, but that's fine. So we're gonna knock that out. Get back. So we were making a Dungeon Master PC for that, rather than making a full-fledged like player character, which I would generally not advise doing if you're making a helper, if you will. I would advise instead making like a Tasha's Cauldron and Everything sidekick. They're a lot easier to run. They're helpful without overshadowing the primary PC's abilities. Generally, there is a chance that you could do that, depending on what sort of a creature you choose as the base. Because you can get real nasty and do something like a Jackal-ware, and that will quickly kind of outclass lower level PCs, because they're very powerful. But then, as you get higher level, it really doesn't matter whatever you choose. No, what is it, like up to 1/4 stat block is going to hold up to the scrutiny of like 5th level characters. Okay. I don't know why it's doing that. Alright. Yeah, sorry, I just have to delete all this. I found the right sheet, but I found it with the characters stuff already in it, so we just won't save this character as who they're supposed to be. So what I should do is freaking save it where it's supposed to be. Now you notice that I have some rations and torches because I do keep track of that stuff, even if nobody else does in the campaign and I'm playing in it. I do it because, like I said, I'm that weird thinker guy, and I like doing that. Okay, alright, we're good. I'm gonna go ahead and save this actually. And see, I know that you guys can't see what I'm looking at. That's okay. Ah, that's right. Alright, so we're gonna go here. Up. Here. Yeah. There you go. TTRPG and game systems, and where's our DnD? We're gonna go to there. This guy, get out of here. Right. Oh gosh, dang it. I can't overwrite the thing that's in there because I've got that document open. Replace it. Yes. Okay. Good. Good. Now we're all on the same page. Now the only thing I need to do is open up Tasha's. Tasha. All right. Can't see it in the recent file, so we'll just open it this way. Here we go. Tasha's. QR bookmarks. Need Dungeon Master tools. Sidekicks. Here we go. So we're gonna make a sidekick. So again, one of the things we want to focus in is making a ranger, because we need somebody who's got a little bit of healing, got a little bit of wilderness stuff kind of going on. I don't want to play a druid. I don't want to play like a full spellcaster, in addition to also running the game and trying to deal with the druid spell list and wild shape and etc. But for a ranger, I also don't want to deal with like a beast companion or something like that either. So the sidekick's a very good option. So we're gonna make a ranger-ish sidekick. So I'm thinking that we can either pick somebody, a stat block that's already got a good ranger vibe to it, and add like the warrior to it. Or I guess we probably have to add spellcaster to it. We have some different options, because any of these will work for ranger. We could do spellcaster. We're probably gonna have to do spellcaster if we want them to have spells, though, unless we choose a character that already has spells. Which we could choose like an acolyte, maybe. And I could do an acolyte and do an acolyte of the cat. That'd be fun, and not have it be Shamash Khadijah, which is the acolyte adjacent person who's the NPC they do know. But she's not really a wilderness girly, so I'm not going to use her. All right. So sidekicks, blah 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 blah. What you need to know is this. They do the same level. They stay at the same level as the party, which we know the party is level 2. We can go ahead and add that in. They level up at the same time. Their hit points, they gain level, they gain 1 hit die. So we'll go ahead and put that in here. So they're going to get +1 hit die. I guess I should put it down here. And that will increase the hit point maximum as well. So they get that as well. They're going to be leveling up at level 2. Their proficiency bonus, that's going to stay the same. Bonus is going to be +2. Their ability score increases we don't have to worry about yet. And we know that they're either going to be an expert, a warrior, or a spellcaster. So the expert is your roguey kind of person. They're going to be your skill monkey. They're the person who gets a bunch of skills. They're going to have the cunning action kind of thing. They get expertise and stuff. They have evasion, inspiring help. They're kind of a bardy rogue kind of character. And they get a bunch of skill stuff. They pretty much help in combat rather than do combat themselves most of the time. Yeah, the spellcaster is they cast spells. They spellcasted about a couple of levels behind a PC. They're always a little slow on the uptake, as is the warrior, who is more of the, like, if you just want to play somebody who, they need somebody to hit something with a sword. Now, for spellcaster, you have to have somebody who speaks a language, so that means that you can't have a dire wolf that's that. I mean, you could get around that. You're the dungeon master in this situation, as am I. I could get around that by being like, oh, this is a wolf that has had Awaken cast on it. So it's an awakened wolf, which means it's going to give it the ability to speak a language. Now it can be a wolf that also casts spells. Super easy to get around with. You might want to have some reason as to why this wolf can talk, though. You're going to have to figure that out. They could have been a ranger companion. Eh? Ooh, that's actually really good. Maybe I should make a ranger companion. Yeah, or maybe even a familiar. That could be interesting, too. Maybe... No, I think the ranger companion makes more sense. Ooh, but that could be fun if it was, like, awakened. What spell level is awakened? It's pretty high, though, right? Yeah, it's 5th level. And only bards and druids get it. A huge or smaller creature, beast, or plant with either no intelligence score or an intelligence of 3 or less. Or the occultist. After spending the casting time tracing magical pathways, blah 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 blah. They have to have an intelligence 3 or less, which a lot of animals I think actually have a 4 intelligence, so you have to watch out with that. They gain the ability to speak one language you know. And if it's the plant, it gets the ability to move its limbs, roots, vines, creepers, and so forth. Again, since it's similar to a human's. Your GM chooses the statistics appropriate for the awakened plant, such as the statistics for the awakened shrub or the awakened tree. The awakened beast or plant is charmed by you for 30 days or until you or your companions do anything harmful to it. When the charm condition ends, the awakened creature chooses whether to remain friendly to you based on how you feel into it. There could be maybe an animal that ran away from somebody. That's cool. I kind of like that. I can make it like a monkey too. That'd be fun. Yeah, maybe I'll make a monkey. That'd be cool. So that way he still gets like hands and stuff. Now, he's not going to be a very good fighter if I do that. But if they get a monkey, yeah, that's not going to work, I don't think. At least not using a monkey. Because I'd like to have somebody who uses hands, so that way they could use like maybe a wand or spell scroll later. Which I'm not going to be able to do if I choose something like a wolf. Or a reptile or something. So maybe I just do humanoid. I know it's boring. I'd rather do the monkey thing. But the needs must. They need very specific things, and they need somebody who can fight. And I don't think the monkey's going to give me the ability, because I'm not going to be able to throw armor on that thing. I could potentially give it barding, though. Well, barding's not great. It's just DR. Maybe he... I mean, there's no reason why the monkey can't... A ranger wouldn't get their monkey custom armor. There's not really a good reason for that. They might do that. A ranger's ranger companion. Exactly. Exactly, a ranger's ranger companion. Who has been awakened. I kind of like it. Yeah, I guess the monkey could have... What's the... Before we get too far, let's just look at monkey stat blocks. Or ape stat blocks. What do we got for that? Monkey. No monkeys. That can't be right. Maybe that's right. No there's really no monkey? And maybe it should be easier. Let's just... So an ape is a half, which I think is the max, right? Creating a sidekick. Creating a sidekick. Yeah, 1/2 CR or lower. Okay, so we'll do the filter. So I can only have things that are up to 1/2. I know you guys can't see what I'm looking at. It's fine. It's not that important. Though I could change it. I could change it so you could look at what absolute. 1/2. There we go. All right. Actually, I'll do that. Which one is right? I think this is the right one. That was not the right one. Is that one the right one? Nope, that one's not the right one. Okay, it is not showing me the right window to share with. Don't know why. Why can't I share file? Get File Explorer out of here. I don't need that. Okay, there we go. All right. So we got there. It was showing me it under a different tab that I had to switch to first. Perfect. Okay, so I think we're gonna go with beast. So that was ape. All right. What are our choices here? So generally, you want to choose something that's a little bit more popular. Ooh, an axe beak would be cool. Oh, cool. We got a baboon. That would work. Monkey-ish, though. Cat could also work. Bear CRs. Got an ape. So ape would work pretty well. I think apes are medium-sized, though. And I really kind of wanted something that was small. But, you know, neither here nor there. I can make it a small if I wanted it to. If I want to make a monkey. Axebeak would be pretty cool. You can pick any animal and level it up to an 18th level druid so they can cast spells. Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is I don't want to run an 18th level druid. Especially not for my second level party. It might be slightly game breaking. Slightly. Bat would be cool too. You can give him a bat. Give him some fly. I'm sure that they would try to get into all sorts of trouble and try to make that thing do all sorts of things they shouldn't be doing. Frogs, owls, Hadrosaur, a panther's pretty cool. I'm not gonna give him a horse because he'll just want to ride the horse. It would also be cool to do a swarm. A sentient swarm. That could be cool. That could be cool. I like it. Yeah. I don't want to do a 0 level. 0 levels are really hard to turn into. I find CR0 monsters don't work super well as sidekicks if you're expecting them to get into any sort of combat. Frogs, giant beetles, jackals, lizards. Yeah, all the stuff down here. I'm thinking ape might be my best chance. Let's look at the ape stat block. Make 2 fist attacks. They've got alright hit points. They're on par. Speed, they've got a climbing speed, which is really nice. They got good strength, decent dex. They got some con, multi-attack. They do technically have a weapon in their stat block, which I think gives them something, right? Maybe that's only for warrior. I think that may only be for warrior. So I could awaken them. yeah. I'm sure they would love to have an 18th level druid in their party. Who would just do the adventures for them. Yeah. I am making this harder on myself. So, ape, not great choice. AC kind of sucks. Like, I'm really having to make the... Then as like I could do it, and then they have to maybe pay double cost to like update the armor on it, which means I'll never update the armor on the ape. Which means that the ape's always going to have crappy AC as they get into higher levels, and it's just not going to work out very well. But a swarm would be fun. What's that? These are all halves, right? What about an Axebeak? Axebeaks are large, though. That's its own problem. Which means that they will definitely try to ride the Axebeak too. A swarm of insects could be interesting. I'm trying to remember, they're in sort of like a jungle setting, so I want it to be relatively jungle adjacent. Yeah, it's not great. You know, unfortunately, I think I may just have to go. Let's do this. Let's add humanoids in here too. Let's see what other humanoids, because there's always like the scout stat block, which is really good. Crocodile. Esfrifniblin. For a deep gnome. Gnolls. Obviously played with Gnolls as sidekick characters before, and that works out really, really well. There's a Jackalware that makes a real nasty guy. As a sidekick. Awakened Sturge Swarm. Sturge Swarm's too high, unfortunately. CR2. But yeah, that'd be a good one. Though you could flavor the swarm of insects like that. They would just be tiny sturges, I guess. Sturge pupa. Pupae. Pupae? Pupae. Jackalwares, lizard folk. Good lizard folk sidekick is always nice. Logwin. Logwin would be really cool. Skulk. Skulk, I always forget. I generally forget, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. I always think of Skulk as like a humanoid, but they are actually like their own style of creature. And go fully invisible, or fallible invisibility. That's pretty nice. Trackless leaves no track to indicate where it's been or where it's headed. They get the claws. They understand common but can't speak. I think you have to be able to speak the language to be a spellcaster. So I either need to give them some way. Now I could just give them the healing kit proficiency, which is arguably better. And I do give a lot of sidekicks. I also take a lot of PCs that haven't done. What are you doing? My dog decided to come in and hang out. I don't think there's anything under there for you. Oh, he's under my desk. So I like this, but we need to make a decision. All right, do we want somebody who's a spellcaster right out the box? A Fire Newt Warrior would be cool. So we could have like an Acolyte right out the gate. Because I think the Acolyte does in fact get, and we can search in here, we don't have to go anywhere. So they do get spellcasting, they get light thaumaturgy. Once per day they get divine aid. So I do like I could do an Acolyte, Leviathan Acolyte, that would work out really well. That would immediately give me the heal I need. But I could also play, what's that scout stat block look like? Scout captain that. What's his CR? CR 3. That's not gonna work. CR 1/2. They get nature, perception, stealth, survival. So already coming out good with the good skills that we need. They get the multi-attack, they get the short sword, they get the longbow. They're going to be able to wear armor, because they're going to have armor on. They have leather armor on. So I'm thinking maybe just take the scout and add the spellcaster spell block to it. That is the simplest. Oh, there's also this merfolk scout. What is this? This merfolk scout? That could be cool. We don't have to use the super basic one. There's the Blade Scout. Who's this dude? Oh, that guy's CR7. You can't do that guy. So yeah, we could do Drow Scout, CR 1/2. They get spellcasting. I could change up those at-wills first if I wanted to. Barovian Scout. Keen Hearing and Sight, multi-attack. This is a pretty good stat block, actually. Advantage on wisdom perception checks. They get the stealth, they get the survival, they get that, they get multi-attack, they get. So they're just the scout but better. They're just scout but better. Okay. Common plus one other language. Yeah, so we'll take the Barovian Scout. Gives them the keen hearing and sight for some reason. Medium humanoid, I can put them at any. I could give them the spellcaster, or I could give them human and give them the ability to pick up that healer feat. What do I want to do? What do I want to do? I know it's boring. I wanted the monkey thing to work out, but I really kind of had to really have to force that to work, I think, unfortunately. So I don't think I'm going to do the monkey one. Just because I feel like if I want to do the monkey and then give him the ability to... I mean, I can make it a simic hybrid, right? Isn't that the monkey people? No. The Hosh... I forget who the ape-like D&D race is. I never plays them. We could do that. That would work out too. And I could have a little bit of the best of both worlds. I could scramble my way back into it. Azadi? Is that the name? Oh, man, that's gonna bug me. Monkey people. Simian race. No, there's an official monkey person. I thought there was. Yeah, it's like there is, isn't there? is this? Yeah, because there were... Alright, the flying mega... Hadozi? Okay, so that is what I was looking for. So that is the right thing. So we're gonna go to Barovian Scout, because we're gonna make our sidekick as powerful as possible, because they will fall behind as time goes on. And then oh, we have these guys too. Oh, that guy's a CR too, but similar. Oh, this Hadozi warrior is a CR 1/2. He's got a light crossbow, short sword. He's got survival and stealth and perception, so all good stuff. Glide. If it isn't incapacitated or wearing any heavy armor, the Hadozi can extend its skin membranes to move up to 5 feet horizontally for every 1 foot it descends in air. Okay. That requires a little bit of math. So that's what, 25 feet horizontally for every 5 feet it goes down. That's a big glide. Makes 2 short sword attacks. Safe descent when it would take damage from a fall. That Hadozi extends the skin membranes to reduce the fall's damage to 0, provided. Oh, they just get to not take any. And uncanny dodge. Ooh, uncanny dodge is really good. This is really good. And pretty much gives me everything I need, except if I make them a spellcaster. If I make them a spellcaster and make them a primal style house. Let's do that. Now, if I'm making them a spellcaster, they just need to have the ability to heal, which is really all they wanted from that. So that means that anybody who's got access to healing spells will work as a spell list. What do these guys spell? So they've got Wisdom 13, Charisma 11, Intelligence 11. So they would have to be... Oh, this is Barovian Scout. Look at the wrong thing. Do our warrior. Wisdom 13, Con 12, Intelligence 10. So we could go either way. We could go Bard... If we wanted to, we could go Druid. If we wanted to, Druid maybe makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, so we have, we got options. This gives them breastplate, which is going to give them at least breastplate medium armor, right? Pretty cushy. Right? Or does breastplate just give you 16 AC? It may just give you... Yeah, because if it was medium, it would cap out only at 15, right? So breastplate is... breastplate may be... It's medium armor. 14 plus 2. Okay, so they are only taking plus 2. Gotcha. So they can... Which is weird, because they should be able to get very similar AC... by just wearing leather? Or studded leather? That would take them to 15, right? I think. Alright, are we going too hard into the monkey thing? Maybe. Maybe we're leaning in too much. This wouldn't allow me to pick up that healer feat. And honestly, the ranger spell list sucks. It's not very good. As somebody who is currently playing a ranger, the ranger spell list, not very good. So maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe it's just better if I do the scout and then I pick up the feat. Or, I mean, there's no reason I can't give this guy. I could swap out this guy's uncanny. Actually, what I'd do is probably swap out his safe descent. Honestly, it's probably not going to come up that much. I say that. We have had a character who's basically died from falling already. But... that plus glide is a lot. Because I don't necessarily want to get rid of Uncanny Dodge because it's really good and it would be really useful in combat. That plus the gliding gives them the ability to maybe like move around the battlefield and maybe be able to do the healing stuff. So that'd be kind of a cool thing where they could like scramble up a tree and then glide. Because here's the thing is that the gliding thing is very willy-nilly. Like does this take movement? Does this count as movement? We don't get that information. So that makes me think maybe not. That's just a thing. Like what kind of action does it take to glide? Is this an action? So it's not an action. Because it's under traits, so it's not a free action I do. The reaction is the safe descent when I'm falling. So glide just means I can just do it whenever. So if I spend my 30 feet to climb up a tree and then zip, zip around with glide, that means maybe I can glide over some enemies, get to somebody, and maybe give them some bandages. I like that. Yeah, so I think we'll use Hazy Warrior. That's fine. We've got a monkey man. Okay. He's already a warrior. We don't even give him the warrior stuff. He kind of has the skill, so we don't really need to give him the skill stuff. I guess we can make him a magic user. I really don't want to deal with the ranger spell list or give him a ton of spells. Oh, that kind of puts me in a pickle then. Maybe I'll just make him an expert. I guess I'll just make him an expert. I'm okay with that. I would definitely swap out this light crossbow for a different ranged weapon so I could make 2 ranged attacks. I don't know why they just gave him the light crossbow. Then maybe I change that. Maybe I let him start off with the light crossbow, and then if I take warrior, he's going to get the ability to use any type of bow, which would be helpful, but not killer. Maybe it's just better. Let's look at them side by side. What you get for each. All right, sidekick. Okay, so experts. You can get bonus proficiencies. We can get the helpful. Take the help action as a bonus action. Very useful. They could really use that. That's really useful in combat. Plus cutting action on top of it means that they can get around very quickly. If I give them the feat that's going to give them the ability to do the healer feat, it'll work out really well. We'll start picking up expertise, coordinated strike, inspiring help. But I could also pick up some spellcasting. So it's spellcasting, second level, they know 2 spells, and they know 2 cantrips. Helpful to know those things. We've got somebody who already does arcane casting. We've got somebody who does clerical divine casting. So it would be nice to have somebody who does a little bit more primal casting. That is potentially something they could do. So, but pretty much the only bonus they get for that is being a spellcaster. Which I'd be more willing to use a spellcaster sidekick if I was a player who was running the sidekick. So maybe the question is, do I want to give over control of this character over to the party? Not sure I trust them with that. Because I can't imagine, I'm thinking about this group of players specifically, that they're not going to use this as basically a free hit point sink. I think they will do that. And use this as their canary in the coal mine, sort of. Be the person who is always setting off the traps and the like. I want them to be helpful, but not be their sacrificial lamb, and also not be the one who kind of steals the spotlight away from some of this stuff. So, I think giving them the monkey man will make them kind of an outsider in town already, so maybe they don't spend a bunch of time, so then maybe they hang out around town too. Which maybe gives them an idea that maybe that has a little bit more talky bits with with our like monstrous humanoids. Like maybe person is better at interacting with like the Swaggin or Bullywugs, Brung, monstrous humanoids on the outside, because they are maybe a little bit more monstrous, and at least in they have more bestial kind of features, so maybe they talk a little bit easier with those types of creatures and better parlay with them. So I don't want to take too much away. It's balancing act because I do have a charisma build character, so I don't want to steal their thunder. But really, you just need somebody who's going to help in melee, which is the How Does He would definitely do. And then add the heal action. I think that's it. I can pretty much play the stat block as it is, and I guess make them. Here's the thing: as an expert, they're gonna get evasion. And evasion is arguably better than uncanny dodge. Arguably. But having that and that would be really good. Plus the cutting action. Yeah, I kind of like this idea that there's a monkey that's got a bunch of movement. It has the ability to like run, jump, fly. Like movement's going to be their thing. They're quick. Yeah, so let's go with expert. So that's what we're going to do. Alright. So now we know what we're building. So now we're going to translate this thing over. Okay, so this is going to be a level 2. They're going to be an expert. Alright, they're going to be... just say monkey man. Be a monkey man. Oh, let me swap back over so you guys can see it. Boom, there we go. Alright, he's gonna be a monkey man. Alright, their armor class is 16. Their initiative is +3, right? Yeah. Their speed is 30. Easy peasy. Alright, so they've got 16, that's their HP. And their hit dice, they have, so they're going to have 4d8 plus 4. And then I'll just put it in here, this is the way I like to do it. Fill those in. They have +1 hit die, so their hit die is a d8. I'm just going to roll for this real quick. Come on. Oh, okay. Rolled well. 7. 7 plus their 1. There's +1, so 8 plus 16. Okay, so 24. Nearly, I just put it down here. They got 24 hit points. That's pretty good. It's certainly more than I think any of our characters have. That's not unusual for because most monsters have more hit dice at lower levels. That will even out in later levels, but they tend to have a lot more hit points at low levels because monsters don't follow PC building rules as far as hit dice are concerned. All right, things they are trained in. They are trained in perception. They are trained in stealth. They are trained in survival. In fact, I think they may have expertise in survival. They certainly do. I'll just put it down there. So they already start off with the expertise in that. Perception, stealth, survival. They have a light crossbow, a short sword. You're gonna have a short sword and a light crossbow. It makes 2 short sword attacks, so it doesn't say that they have 2 short swords, so they just make 2 of the same attack, I guess? Because it doesn't say short swords. So, okay. No problem. It's going to be the same either way, so we're going to have short sword. And we're going to have light crossbow. Attack bonus should be the same for both of these, right? +5. Yeah. 2d8. That light crossbow does 2. Oh, so instead of doing 2 hits, they do 2d8 on the hit. That's confusing. That's fine. 2d8. Because, like, why'd you give them the crossbow instead of just letting them make 2 short bow attacks? I don't know. Yes. Okay. And then this is going to be 1d6 plus 3. They only get 2 short sword attacks. Now, do I like this? Do I want to swap out their weapon, their ranged weapon? A light crossbow weapon seems like a weird thing for a monkey man to have in the jungle. That's a very tuned piece of gear. I think it's maybe a little bit tech level higher than our monkey man. And I think we're going to make our monkey man small. He's not medium. He's going to be small for sure. I could just swap the crossbow out. I could do... Okay, so our artificer has a... Here's the thing. Our artificer has an alchemy jug. And the artificer has also already tried to harvest things from dead creatures. Like resources to turn into... They did some alchemist fire and an acid vial. But they have an alchemy jug that allows them to make poison. So if I give them something that does poison, maybe I give them a blowgun instead. Which doesn't do a lot of damage. It does allow us that, which maybe feels a little bit more jungle creature-y. Range up to 25 feet, 100 feet long range, needle, loading, 1 piercing. You can fire only 1 piece. When you use a bonus action or reaction to fire, regardless what number of attacks you can make. Oh, that's Mastery Vex. We're not gonna have any mastery. It only does 1 point, so it would just be like if you gave our monkey man the poison, he'd be able to do poison on his attacks. But he could do that not with a blowgun. I'm always a big fan of slings. I like slings. And I do have a homebrew rule where slings are because I keep track of ammunition in my games. Just so you don't have the ranger problem where they have infinite arrows, which doesn't really make any sense, and is one of the things. Range attacking is already really, really powerful in D&D. Giving them infinite ammo on top of that, which is supposed to be the limiting resource of it, is really bad. The only exception I make is slings. Slings have infinite ammo because you can just find rocks. We just kind of assume that you're always kind of looking around for good stones or rounding off stones to make sling bullets, or you're making sling bullets. So assume that that's the only ranged weapon that has basically limitless ammunition. So I could do that, and then I'd let him get 2 sling attacks in. Or I just change it to be the 2d4 plus 3. Which technically does less damage overall. I'm okay with that. I'm gonna change that because I like that better than light crossbow. So we're gonna change this to sling. And so he's, instead of doing 2d8, he's gonna be 2d4 plus 3. He's real good at slinging. That's all you need to know. He hit real hard when he do the sling. Okay, so we're gonna do that. So short sword and sling. I can change out his weapon too. Short sword maybe doesn't make sense. Maybe like a club. But the club is not a finesse weapon, which he needs to use his dex. That's fine. We'll go with short sword. That's fine. It would be scimitar. I kind of like scimitar better. We'll do scimitar. I think that's a little bit more iconic monkey man fighting style. The scimitar and sling. I like it. I like his curved blade thing for a scimitar. Kind of fits into. I think I'm pulling in more like Apu from Aladdin, and scimitars there, even though they're probably more like tulwars or falchions. But that's okay. We're gonna say scimitar because that'll give us the light property still, or the finesse property. Easy peasy. Light crossbow. Passive perception 13. Languages common. Easy. All right. Easy. Glide. Which so it really can glide. If you get the Hadozi up on something tall, they can really just kind of infinite glide. And again, the glide for the trait is such a weird thing they threw in there. Is to be like, do you travel all of that in one round? You still, because it's not under movement like climb, because they definitely have a climb speed. So, and I'll do that too. So like, does all the glide happen within one round? Does it not? These are things where I'll probably have to scratch my head when it comes up as a DM and be like, how much can you actually glide in one round? Because the rules are not written in a way for me to know that. And unlike like jumping, it doesn't tell you, it doesn't have any nomenclature or any specifics about, you know, in jumping it was like, oh, and that also includes your movement, as far as your movement speed will allow you to jump. Not so much for this glide. But not in action. Weird. I guess I don't really need to write multi-attack. I already put the 2x in there. Short sword, we got that. We got the light crossbow. Reactions. I guess I can spell that out without heavy armor. Okay, they can reduce falls damage to 0 with glide without heavy armor. Alright, so yeah, basically can't be hurt from falling, which is a higher level monk ability. To get that really early on at like second level is really nice. Man, he would have been really good for that descent that they had to make, which was like 500 feet. He could have just basically just jumped down there and used his little glide and circled down and hit the ground and been fine. Well, nice for him. Okay, uncanny dodge. Half damage from attack of attacker. I can see. Okay. Perfect. Alright, so that gives us everything from the Hadozi except for our stats. Let's do our stats real quick. This guy has a 0, because they have 11 strength. It's a 16 dexterity, so a nice +3. Under here, we're going to put that they have the breastplate too. Which I'm not sure I love that. I might change their armor. I might drop them down to 15 just so they have like studded leather or something. Because definitely they're not going to want something that's going to make them less stealthy. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, so I might drop them down. We'll see. Dex, they have a con of 13. To get a +1 con. They have pretty good, like, humanoid, like, player stats. General 10. Big old goose egg. Wisdom is a +1. They have a 13. And charisma of John Hamm. That's +1. That is a Toast of London reference. For the 2 people out there that seen Toast of London. His charisma killed our father. Alright. So that gives us, I think, everything out of the stat block. Now, we need to look at Tasha's. So we're going to do this hazard. So, the first thing I'm going to look up is the healer feat. They did change that. I guess they changed it in 2024. Healer feat's not as good as it used to be. If you have a healer kit, you can spend one use of it and tend to a creature within 5 feet of yourself as a utilized action. The creature can expend one of its hit dice and then roll that die. The creature regains a number of hit points equal to the roll plus your proficiency bonus. Healing rerolls. Whenever you roll a die to determine the number of hit points you restore with a spell or with this feat's battle medic benefit, you can reroll the die. If it rolls a 1, you must use the new roll. Yeah. You can reroll the die. Oh, you only reroll once. Okay. You only have a chance to roll. So if you roll a 2, it's like, okay. It was weirdly worded. At least for me. Okay, that's not nearly as good as the old healer. Fine, that sucks. What's under legacy? Yeah, let me get the 2014 one. Because I prefer the 2014 healers one. When you use a healer's kit to stabilize a dying creature, they also regain 1 hit point, which is very useful. So you can immediately pop somebody back up. As an action, you can spend 1 use of a healer's kit to tend to a creature and restore 1d6 plus 4 hit points to it, plus additional hit points equal to your creature's maximum hit die. Creature can't regain hit points from this feat again until it finishes a short or long rest. I like this one much better. It actually has better healing than the spells. It scales better. So I'm going to use the 2014 one because I like the 2014 one better. And because they're looking for healing, so I want to give them something that actually heals. Now, it comes back every short rest. So I am going to give them this 2014 one. It is better. Yeah, maybe I'll just put it up here. So, action. Stabilizes dying, and it doesn't even have to stabilize it. Healer hit gives 1 HP to dying creature. So it doesn't really matter that they're stabilizing because it's going to give them a hit point back anyway. So they're just going to get a hit point back. So they're going to wake up and be stabilized. Action. Even though I'm probably going to put this under attacks. I'm going to put this other one under attacks. Heal. Kit provides... what level are we? This is 1d6 plus... 1d6 plus... No, 1s. 6 plus 4 plus... I'm going to put target gains. Yeah, because that already just gives you better out the gate. I like it. They have to once per rest. And that's basically a once per rest. I'm just going to put down here, I'm going to put down our character's name, so we have Swain. I'll put him in alphabetical order. We have Caleb. And we have Zarnok. Because they can only use that heal action once per rest. So it's not overpowered, so it's very powerful, but it's very limited use. So you guys have to take a bunch of short rests or a long rest. So it's limited use, and it actually uses a resource because we're going to track those resources. We're down here, we'll look at And he'll start out, of course, with a healer kit. And we'll do 0, 1, 4. Which is just shorthand for me when I use because I use the resource die mechanic. I've talked about this in other videos. Where it starts off at a D6, that's as much as you can carry. If you roll a 1 on the 1D6 after you use it, it goes down to a D4. If you roll a 1 on the D4, it goes down to, you only have 1 use of it left. Use that, you got 0 uses left. And then you gotta go buy more. Or forage for it. Alright, perfect. So we've got that, we've got our healer's kit, so we're just gonna finish off stuff down here. Bonus, proficiencies, and the helpful action. Gains proficiency in 1 saving throw of your choice. This guy wasn't trained in anything, right? Oh, he's trained in dex saves and con saves. Oh, nice. All right, so he's already trained in dex saves and con saves. And make that a 5. 3. All right, so then they're gonna get gains proficiency in 1 saving throw of your choice. Dexterity, well, I already got that. Intelligence or charisma. Both are ones that don't come up very often. They technically have better charisma, so I think we're going to lean in on charisma. That's good. It means that they're hard to banish, stuff like that. Now, it does mean that they can be blighted or enfeebled or, gosh, feeble-minded. There we go. Alright, so they got that. In addition, this gains proficiency in 5 skills of your choice. It gains proficiency with light armor. Already has it. If it's humanoid or has a simple or martial weapon in its stat block, it also gains proficiency with all simple weapons and with 2 tools of your choice. So again, very much the skill monkey. Get it? Because he's a monkey. Anyways. So, alright. You get 5 skills of our choice. Nature for sure. Sleight of hand for sure. That's 2. I think we got to put him in athletics. I think we got to put him in acrobatics. And I think we're going to put that last one in animal handling. To really fill in that sort of like ranger thing. So again, we didn't give them medicine, but I'm pretty sure that our cleric has medicine training. If not, he's also a wisdom-based character and will have a better role on that, probably anyways. He's going to be just the same. And remember that we already have expertise in survival. Alright, so those are our 5 skills. In addition to psychic, gains 5 skills. If it is a humanoid, technically it is a humanoid. It gains proficiency with light armor. Already had that. And apparently breastplates. And so they're going to have simple weapons. Simple weapons, light armor, breastplates. And I guess short swords, right? Or in this case, scimitars. And you know what? Should I give him the light? No, because I switched them over to sling. That's fine. I'm not gonna give them the light crossbow proficiency. They don't need it. All right. In proficiency with light armor, if the humanoid has a simple or martial weapon, it also gains proficiency in all simple weapons and with 2 tools of your choice. Tools. What are we gonna do for tools? I may have to dig it out. I'm looking at the tools list. There's so many tools is the thing. Carpenters, cartographers, cobblers, glassblowers, jewelers, leatherworkers, masons, navigators, potters, smiths, thieves, tinkering. I'm going to give them thieves tools for sure. Because it doesn't say artisan tools, right? 2 tools of your choice. Okay. So, even though I think maybe our artificer has thieves tools, but I don't think maybe they've used them. Just in case. I can always retrain these later if it turns out they have them. So we're going to go with thieves tools. For sure. And we're going to get one other. I would also throw weapons in game, or not weapons, instruments in games in here as well. Smith, weavers, wood carvers. There we go, artisan tools. Alchemist supplies. Alchemist supplies would be, what can I do with an alchemist? Artisan tools are focused on crafting and if you have proficiency with tool, add your proficiency bonus to ability checks you make. Identify a substance, start a fire, craft acid, alchemist fire, component pouch, oil, paper, perfume, but not healing. That's the only reason I would think about taking it. Maybe we'll just give him something silly like painter supplies. First, I was thinking woodcarver's tools, but yeah, you know what? Let's just give them some painter supplies. Why not? You know what's something that they could do out in the wild? And I'm thinking of, like, I've seen the people that have, like, the little mini painting kit where they basically make, like, postcard-sized paintings and drawings. And so they have a little box and they flip it up and they, like, pin it up and then they have their little colors and do it. I'm thinking something like that. I'm gonna go with painters supplies. And we're gonna add those down here as well. They're gonna have those on them. That means they'll be able to pick some locks, get rid of some traps. They can always climb over the traps or fly over the traps. Or glide, technically, they can't fly. Okay, so that gives us some good options. I like it, I like it. There's sometimes, I'll be honest, there are sometimes because I like the framework of the sidekicks so much and the versatility with them, that there are often times that I wouldn't mind playing in a campaign where everybody was just a sidekick. They're not that much less underpowered than PCs, especially at low levels. In fact, in low levels, sometimes they're more powerful than PCs. We've seen here, there's already has a chance to has locked in a higher level rogue ability at like first level with our monkey man. But they're simpler but lots more versatile. They're not super as necessarily combat focused, which I kind of like. Getting access to a whole bunch of spells up front is really neat. Or not a bunch of spells, a bunch of skills up front is really neat. They're cool. I like them. I like playing them too. Especially because it gives you the opportunity to play monsters, which is not something you typically get to do in D&D. Alright. So, we've got our bonus proficiencies. We also had this helpful. The sidekick is adept at giving well-timed assistance. The sidekick can take the help action as a bonus action. So we've got our actions, we've got our reactions. We're going to put our bonus action in there. Super useful to be able to like roll up into combat, scimitar, help action on the fighter to give them advantage. That's super powerful. And technically we are second level, so they get the cunning action as well. Sidekick's agility or quick thinking allows it to act speedily. On its turn in combat, it can take the dash, disengage, or hide action as a bonus action. So we're just adding onto it. So we're just adding dash, disengage, and hide to the same thing. Dash, disengage, help, hide. Again, like being able to disengage or dash and have a climb so you can get up there and use the glide function gives them the ability that in a lot of circumstances they're going to be able to move across the battlefield really good, which is one of the reasons why I went to use the healer kit instead of just doing like a healing word where it's just like, Oh, and then 60 feet away, he gives you a d4 plus whatever hit points back. Instead of being like, no, then you see him sort of like scramble up onto the top of these bookshelves in the dungeon and glide over the monster in front of him, over to where the downed fighter is, and grabs them and like puts some bandages on them, or does the stabilize action. They get up with 1 hit point. And they're there to sort of protect that person there as they pull out their scimitars. So they get a cool moment, but it's not going to be like super overpowering. They're not going to do anything that's too cool. Gliding is useful, but it's not flying. Flying would be much more useful. And to have the climb speed and the fly speed and the swim speed would be... Oof, that's a lot. Especially if you had hover. Alright, and that's all we get at second level. So this is pretty much our guy. He's got 24 hit points. He's got a 16 AC with that breastplate. Actually, let's look at armor. Alright, so we could drop him... He's got the breastplate, which gives him 14 plus 2. He has a plus 3 dex. So if we had something that did 13 plus dex modifier, which would be a chain shirt... But that would only max out with plus 2 anyways. It's just very weird, like, why does this guy have that if you're going to make him a dex build? I kind of want to just give him studded leather. But one of the things I could do this, is that if he has the breastplate, because the fighter, I think, is a strength-based fighter, but has kind of a crappy AC because they're wearing light armor because they don't want the disadvantage on stealth. I could have them swap the breastplate for their... I think they have studded leather armor as well. So that would boost up their AC a little bit. I think they have a 15 AC, so they're in a very similar situation. They could get that extra point and then swap it out of the monkey. And it's like, yeah, traditionally I wouldn't let them do that because the monkey is... The way the armor fits on the monkey is going to be way different than how it's going to fit on the big dragonborn. But in this circumstance, I might hand wave that if they want to do that, if they want to swap that out. Which I'm okay with. No shields. So it is a little weird that we're making 2 scimitar attacks, but we don't have 2 scimitars. Don't necessarily need to give them the offhand weapon since they can't use a shield in melee or ranged, honestly, because we're using a one-handed weapon for range now. But they're not going to have 2 weapons. They have all these bonus actions that every turn they can dash, disengage, help, and help is probably over the long term a better action to take as a bonus action than trying to do like a dagger attack. Giving the fighter or the cleric or whoever it is the ability to roll with advantage on their primary attack. Probably much better in the long run. So I think we're good with that. So don't need to worry about a shield, don't need to worry about an offhand weapon. Also gives them the ability that they like can use potions or take potions with them, and they can hop around and fly and stuff. I'm going to make this creature small. The healer feat from D&D, or we got the healer kit. We also just need to give them some random supplies. So we're going to give them some adventuring supplies. So let's say adventurers, and you know, what are these sort of like packs, right? Alright, we're calling them the kits now. Oh goodness gracious. Okay, they are packs. Why isn't that coming up under pack? Okay, there we go. Alright. Now we're cooking with gas. Alright, burglar's pack, landing pack. This is all under adventuring gear still, right? Adventuring gear. Here we go. Wish there was a way to quick look at just like all the packs. That's fine. I know you can't see what I'm looking at. Abacus has a... What are we doing? Explorer's pack seems like it would be right. Backpack, bedroll, oil, rations, rope, tinderbox, torches, water skin. That all feels right. Priest pack does not seem right. Entertainer's pack. Bullseye lantern, costumes, mirror. Nah. Dungeoneer pack. Backpack, caltrops, crowbar, 2 flasks of oil, 10 days of rations, rope, tinderbox, torches, water skin. That's better. Seven flasks of oil. Wow. For burglar's pack, but only 5 days of rations. Okay. Backpack, ball bearings, bell, crowbar. I do like the crowbar. Let's do like maybe the burglar's. I'm going to swap some stuff out because I don't really need the ball bearings. Or the bell. I don't think those are things that they're going to be too into having. Yeah, so let's do burglar's pack. We're gonna swap a couple things out because they for sure don't need 7 flasks of oil. That's a ton of oil. All right, so we're gonna give them the pack, so they're gonna have all right stuff that's in their backpack. So we don't really want the ball bearings or the bell or the candles really. I'm just going to take the crowbar. Don't really need it because we have somebody who's a strength-based character, and I can give them the help action, which is essentially all the crowbar does. In fact, do you want to give them crate tool? I'll give them crate tool. I'm a big fan of crate tool. If you're not familiar with the crate tool, it is essentially like a very primitive multi-tool. It's got an axe, like a hatchet head on one side, a hammer head on the other side, and then at the top it's like a nail pry bar. So it's kind of like putting a crowbar, a hatchet, and a hammer all together in one tool. So just like it. So I'm going to go with a bullseye lantern instead of the hooded lantern. And I'm going to put oil over here. I'll give him the 1d6. 0, 1, 6. Also need some rations. 0, 6. Do that. Tinderbox. Interesting thing about the burglar's pack does not have a bedroll in it. We'll go ahead and add a bedroll for him. So we're getting rid of a number of different things. Is there anything else that feels very... like basic fishing equipment seems like a thing that they might have too. Basic fishing equipment includes a pole, line, hook, and either a lure or some bait. Fishing is a popular pastime in the wild, space, and natural sea. Moving faster than its fly speed. At the end of each hour spent fishing, a character can make a DC 15 survival check, which he'd be alright at. He gets that at his wisdom, so he gets a +5, so he only needs to roll a 10 on that roll. That indicates no fish is caught during that hour. And a D10, there's still a... oh. This is like for sure 100% Spelljammer. Space Eel. Okay, well, we're not going to do that. This is all stuff from Boo's Astral Menagerie. But fishing stuff should still be in here. So we'll just put it. Trying to fish command, background fisher, cave fisher, basic fishing equipment, awful fisher. There's just like the fish suit. Fishing tackle, that's what I was looking for. This kit includes a wooden rod, silken line, corkwood bobbers, steel hooks, lead sinkers, and velvet lures, and narrow netting. Basically, I believe it just gives you advantage whenever you're making a survival check if you want to look for forging with those sort of components, which I'm good with. I'm trying to think if there's any other adventuring gear that feels like it would be a thing. Doesn't need climber's kit because it has a climbing speed. Not in a cold weather place. Don't really need crampons, crossbow bolt case. Anything fun in here? Fine clothes, ink, paper, no. Engineer's pack. Rope. I didn't put that on there. I need some rope. Again, has a climb speed, but rope's useful for other things. Mortar skin. An elven trinket. These elven trinkets are interesting. I don't think I want one of those though. Costumes, mirror. Could argue for a mirror, but not going to take it. A Feywild trinket. We could do a Feywild trinket, maybe. Just to give them something fun to have. Sure, let's roll a 1d100, see if they come up with something fun. Just kind of give them a flavor at this point, because we're pretty much done. 18. I rolled twice. I got an 18 and a 40. Let's do 18 first. 18. A rotten ogre's tooth with the elven lift from moon etched in it. Can't talk. Number 40. I don't really like that one. Wax candle that roars and crackles like a bonfire while lit. Oh, that's neat. I'm not sure it's useful, but it's fun. I'm not sure why somebody would be carrying it around, though. Flask. Flask is a classic. Giant trinket. Those are funny. Maybe just a glass bottle. Bunch of trinkets in here. Hammer, healer's kit. Holy water. A horror trinket. I don't think that really matches this game. Narrow class, a hunting trap. I don't think you'd use a hunting trap, even though that would make sense. There's insect repellent. There's a sale of both. Neither kind of repellent protects against giant insects or the vile swarms of insects described in the Appendix A of the monster manual. When lit, it burns for 8 hours and repels normal insects within a 20-foot radius center. Oh, so that's nice. That does seem like something they would have. That was the block of incense, and that lasts for 8 hours. Oh, there's Gorder Vial. This is the salve. Contains 20 applications. One application protects its wearer against normal insects for 20. Oh, so this is something you put on your body. And the other one's an incense block. Okay, that makes sense. I thought you burned the salve as well. Like a citronella kind of situation. But that is not the case. That's interesting. I don't hate it. A keg of alchemist fire. Oy, nope, not that. This one's called the Lorehold Trinket. This is from Strixhaven. A broken dagger with a wavy blade and serpentine hilt. A sheet of parchment embossed with tactile lettering glowing red. The head of a broken statue that houses the consciousness of a snarky sage. A dented brass compass with a red needle. That could be a cool one. A puzzle box bedecked with amber. A map made of concentric circles that can be rotated around the page. Interesting. These are the menga leaves? Menja. Let's go with menja. Menja leaves. Dried leaves of a menja bush can be ground, dissolved in a liquid, heated, and ingested If you take 1 ounce, you regain 1 hit point. If you ingest more than 5 ounces in a 24-hour period, there's no additional benefit. And you must succeed on DC 11 Constitution saving throw or fall unconscious for 1 hour. The unconscious creature awakens if it takes at least 5 damage on 1 turn. Oh, so like real bad. A healthy monster bush has 2d6 ounces of leaves. Once picked, the leaves require 1 day to dry out before they can confer any benefit. Interesting. A miner's pick, monster hunter pack. What's in the monster hunter pack? Crowbar, hammer, stakes, holy water, manacles, flask of oil, tinderbox. And no, not doing that. A balloon backpack. Paper pitcher, piton, planar philosopher, portable ram pouch. I'm not gonna worry too much about it. I tend to spend way too much time on this stuff when I'm making a character because I'm a bit of a gearhead. I like having a nice little thing of gear to take with me, but this guy's pretty much done. I'm just looking at some trinkets. I'm not sure if I want to give him a trinket. I don't know what his vibe is yet. I can always add a trinket later once I figure out his vibe and play. And then he can kind of reveal it to people. A utensil shaped like a fork on one end and a spoon on the other. That's actually just useful. A thick sun-yellowed book on seasonal agriculture written in halfling like a farmer's almanac. Interesting. A canteen that makes any liquid drunk from it taste sweet. Oh, that's really nice. I like that. A black leather notebook finished with half-finished poems. A set of flashcards detailing different colloquialisms and their meaning. A stylish silver pen that references a famous series of novels about warlocks. A stack of small pieces of parchment, each enchanted to stick to whatever surface is pressed against and peel off easily. That's fun. These are fun. These were really good. These silver quill trinkets. What book was this in? Strixhaven. These are really cool. I could see this character having any of these. And it makes sense. Except for maybe a forged permission slip granting access to special archives of Strixhaven's libraries. That part, maybe not so much. But these other ones I could definitely see. Yeah. Oh, we've got so many trinket tables. I really like the Strixhaven ones, though. First, what is... Oh, elemental evil trinkets. Yeah, the silver quill trinket. What could we give them? I do like the small pieces of parchment, each enchanted to stick to whatever surface is pressed against to peel off easily. That could be used very, very fun way to be like, oh, you can put arrows on it and do like wayfinding marks, or because they're essentially stickers, like post-it notes. They're essentially just magical post-it notes, which is very cool. But I also like the canteen that makes any liquid drunk from it taste sweet. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a magic canteen. I don't know, that seems like a fun monkey man kind of thing. All right, I think that's it. I think we need a name for our monkey man. What do we name our monkey man? I don't really have any strong name things. I could pull out one of the things, because everything in this area is pretty Arabic in names. And I do have Xanathar's Guide with me, which has nice roll tables in the back. So I assume that he's going to be... I could give him a Mesoamerican name. That might fit. I like that New World monkey style. Yeah, let's maybe try that. I think any of them will work, and I think them being a little outside of maybe Arabic also works. Kind of gives them a feeling like maybe they're still foreign, even in a foreign land. Another D100 rolls, so let's roll. I'm kind of was always assuming that this is going to be a male character, so we'll just go with male names. 49.85. Let's try our Mesoamerican. Roll twice. We got a 49. Wesley. Or 85. 85. Flacco. Nigerian Congo. We could try that. I don't love either one of those names. Balami. That's a cool name. And then Shanika, Shanika? That's in her male names. That's interesting. I would assume that that is a female name, but okay. I guess I'm wrong. What was the first one? 49, right? I kind of like Falami. I kind of dig that name. I think that works. I think that's good. I like it. And so now we just need to decide background-wise, is this going to be a awakened monkey man? The Hadesies are already very specific because they have that glide thing. I could remove it, but I could have removed that and doesn't mean like that's just where they got the healer thing from, because losing the glide's not terrible. I'm gonna put this in. Yeah, they have climb 30. If I want to make him a monkey man, like a full-on, like this was a ranger's companion, I think I would have to remove the glide. There is something very sad about a animal companion that's lost their ranger, though, and is awakened and is the only one of their kind. That's incredibly isolationist and very tragic in a very way that I'm not sure that this campaign necessarily needs. So maybe he's just a monkey man. So this is just a bestial race, so he's not the only one of her kind. Like, they could go find more Hadozi. I'm not sure the pronunciation of that, actually. I'm not sure I've ever said it out loud. So they could do that. This is a level expert sidekick. I know you guys can't see all the way at the top. I'm messing with stuff. That's okay. But yeah, I think this is it. We're already at like 3.5 hours, so I'm not gonna go in and do any of the hex mapping. We'll just do that another time. That was kind of a backup. I didn't know how long some of this stuff would take. It took plenty of time. So I think that's gonna be it. We got this guy. Our Falami's gonna be jumping into the campaign. Let me add their passive wisdom, which is gonna be 13. Passive perception 13. So they've got some cool stuff in here. They've got the painting to give them something to talk about outside of combat. They got their cool hiding. They're not going to be much of a spellcaster. That's all right. They are going to be a pretty decent healer, and they have a lot of opportunity to move around the battlefield, which means that it's really useful to have a healing option that you have to do in touch with. You can't do a ranged heal with it. So, and then give them the ability to kind of bounce around, be very monkey-like, like climbing and gliding and jumping across the fights to do that. And also has an ability is like, hey, if you need to go up to the top of the trees to look at something, he can climb up there. He can be kind of be a little gopher and kind of go and do things. Got pretty decent stealth. So I think this will, I think this is going to work out really well. think follow me is going to be a good thing. I don't think this guy's going to be particularly difficult to run. He's got nice reactions. He's got good bonus actions. Got an action that you can do in combat that's not attacking, which is the healing action, which is really nice. As well as he'll be able to give like the we'll get some other stuff later that he can do, like the coordinated strike thing, which is at 6th level. The Psychic is adept at fighting in concert with Companion. When the Psychic uses its helpful feature to aid an ally in attacking a creature, the target can be up to 30 feet away from the Psychic, and Psychic can deal an extra 2d6 damage to it the next time the Psychic hits with an attack before the end of the current turn. Which is basically, Coordinated Strike is essentially their sneak attack. But they also get Inspiring Help, but that's not until 11th level. Inspiring Help's really cool though. When the Psychic takes the help action, the creature who receives the help also gains 1d6 bonus to their 1d20 roll. So they can kind of get like a Bardic Inspiration, Guidance, Bless kind of spell. In addition to, when you use that help action, they're still going to get that plus 2d6 from Coordinated Strike. And then they're going to pick up Evasion at 7th level on top of having, oh gosh. I just blanked on the name. The thing that they already have. It's not Evasion. It's the other one. Uncanny Dodge. There we go. Which is usually a 5th level ranger rogue thing they get. And this guy's going to have it at 2nd level. So, obviously shouldn't be taking up too many resources, but also has these cool reactions. This will work out really well. But that's it for the stream. Thanks for hanging out. This was a lot of fun. Got to go through some stuff, talk about those player archetypes and how to put the games together, then build our Monkey Man companion, who morphed a little bit through the creation as is usual. Had that very strong idea to make him sort of like a ranger's animal companion. But in practice, that would just make him really kind of crappy at stuff, and he also does need to be kind of okay at melee combat. That was really the thing that was kind of holding us back on that. So giving him this Adozi is kind of a middle road. So this is still going to be somebody who's kind of like on the outside of society, so not super useful in that social aspect, but maybe more useful when talking to other bestial kind of things, but also able to give out those heals. Able to give out heals, but more importantly, the help action to deal, especially with social situations, will be really good. Plus, we have a guidance that comes from the cleric, so our ability to dogpile on some skill checks will come out really nice. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye.